Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to Let's Talk About Book, where we talk about book. I'm Smeevca.
And I'm Strawberry.
And this is Holly.
Yeah.
She ran right up to us immediately.
Can you make a little noise? No.
No noises from you?
No noises.
But yeah, we're doing Secret History.
Yeah.
And also,
The Scadrial Essay. The
Yeah.
Scadrial system.
from the, Ars Arcanum.
Yeah.
That's what it is? Yep. Yeah, because we talked about doing some other stuff at one point.
Yeah.
And then we were like, and then in later episodes, we were like, actually, we're going to do Secret History.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a little novella.
Yeah.
So it's like we can just kind of bang it out in one video.
Yep.
We're doing it a little differently this time.
Yeah.
Instead of, there's no epigraphs.
Right.
So we're going to start by just straight up reading you.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the Scadrial Essay.
Yeah. Because it's only 2 pages long. And considering how long the epigraphs were in the previous thing. Yeah, and
It's way less reading than the last video.
Yep, and the chapters of this video are going to be broken up just by the parts rather than by every chapter, because there's a lot, and we're trying to just keep this to one video, and this is just kind of a little bookend for Mistborn Era 1. I do wonder, because it's this has spoilers for whatever book. Is it just what even are the spoilers?
Yeah.
But
I think that's a good. That's good.
Yeah. Which we'll get to that when we get there. But yeah. I'm is there anything else that we need to say before sort of getting into it?
I don't think so. We're also going to be doing Game of Thrones stuff.
Yes, we're starting. We're trying to record 2 episodes today, so that we can start putting out videos a little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, just it's been nice seeing comments.
Yeah.
Our most recent video, a couple people commented and was replying to them, and
it's the best seeing comments.
Yes, and it's also fun because it's we have a new subscriber, and then I just see this one guy going through the videos and then leaving comments about the moon.
Yep.
and stuff, and it's great. We love to see it. We're very tiny.
Yeah.
So any interaction, it's we
is
see
the
it.
best.
Yes, it's it's great. We see it and we notice it.
Yeah.
So anytime you do liking, subscribing, any of those things, is noted and appreciated. Yeah. And I don't know. Tell your friends. Put
it out to other Cosmere or other book people.
Yeah. Just put it on while you sleep. Just put the playlist on while you sleep, and just get those sleep views.
Those sleep views.
That's what podcasts are for, right?
Right.
But yes, we're ready to get started. Yeah. All right. The Scadrial system.
The inner system here is basically empty, save for the planet Scadrial, which is fortuitous considering the vast changes the system has undergone because of the influence of its shards.
Yep.
The remarkable thing about Scadrial is how well humankind has flourished on it, despite these repeated cataclysms. Surely, other planets in the Cosmere have seen worse disasters, but on none of them will you find a thriving, technologically advanced society as exists on Scadrial. Indeed, I'm convinced that without the Lord Ruler's oppression of technology on the planet for 1,000 years, Scadrial would have eclipsed all others in scientific learning and progress, all on its own, without the interaction between societies we enjoy in Silverlight. Scadrial, another dishardic planet, is characterized by a host of unique features. It is one of only 2 places in the Cosmere where humankind does not predate the arrival of shards. Indeed, I'm convinced from my studies that the planet itself did not exist before its shards, ruin, and preservation arrived in the system. They picked a star with no relevant planets in orbit, specifically choosing this location because it was empty, so they could place there whatever they wished. Yes, the shards undoubtedly used humans from Yolen as a model. Indeed, both of the vessels for these shards were human before their ascensions in creating life. Because of this, the flora and fauna on Scadrial are very similar to what you'll find on Yolen. The non-Fane parts, of course.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yolen, it's new.
It is also very similar to Yolin in size and gravitation, both being exactly at 1.0 Cosmere standard. Though the shards created this planet together, it quickly became the symbol of, and prize in, their conflict. To speak on the personalities of the vessels themselves is not my field of expertise. Better to approach one of my colleagues who specializes in pre-shattering biography and history, rather than an arcanist.
Yeah.
I can say, however, that their conflict is manifested directly in the ways that investiture is used on Scadrial.
Investiture.
This is a powerful magic, and one where humans themselves have often had access to grand bursts of strength. Bursts of strength.
Strong bursts.
I would challenge one to identify another planet, save only Roshar, where one could find such strength of investiture so commonly in the hands of mortals. Periodically throughout Scadrial's history, a man or woman gained access to vast amounts of power, with incredible effects. The most obvious evidence of this is the fact that the star charts Gwyn has so kindly provided list 2 orbits for Scadrial. The planet was literally moved at various points by individuals wielding immense amounts of investiture. As an aside, this has wreaked havoc with trying to understand historical calendars on the planet. I have written much about the magics of this planet. Indeed, I could fill entire volumes with my thoughts on allomancy, ferochemy, and hemalurgy. I maintain, however, that the one of these with the largest potential impact on the Cosmere is hemalurgy. Usable by anyone with the right knowledge, this dangerous creation has proven able to warp souls regardless of planet or investiture, creating false connections that no shard designed or intended.
Yeah, connections.
Yep.
Which was something that showed up in the Ars Arcanum at the end of the last book,
right.
Even though it wasn't mentioned in that book at all.
Yeah. Though the planetary system is rather boring, Scadrial itself has proven intriguing time and time again. This is despite the fact that humans used to live on a relatively small portion of the planet, a fact that began to change once the extreme environments of the Final Empire were removed. From the adaptations, both forced and unforced, of the humans living on her, to the vast transformations of landscape during her different eras, Scadrial remains my favorite planet for scholarly study in the Cosmere. The interactions of her magics with natural physics are multitude, varied, and fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Because I'm like, how exactly did it work that the only part of it was habitable? Like, how would that mean that it was sort of like...
Yeah.
Like, what were the days and night cycles like there? Because they're not, like, really long day and night cycles, like, if they're at the poles or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like what was the orbit and stuff like for it to, like, be positioned properly?
Yeah.
I don't know. And they have, like, a little, like, map, like, a little
there's,
star
like,
chart thing here. And seeing how close, like, how much it was moved, it's... crazy.
It's so close.
Like, I doubt that's, like, to scale. Because scale like that is insane. But it's like, oh yeah, we moved you from being, like, where Earth is to, like...
Like Mars.
Yeah. To like... or, like, Venus,
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, it's like... Truly, it is just, like, you're living on Venus now, and we have, like, a thick atmosphere to shield you from the sun. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, and then talk about, like, investiture, Yolin, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yolin,
so what we know of Yolin is only from pre-released stuff, like stuff he hasn't released from Dragonsteel, which is, like, it's supposed to be, like, Hoid's, like, origin story, basically, kind of. And it has not been... published. He has like it on his I think website or whatever, maybe Dragonsteel's up there, but it's not canon, but it's highly like parts of it will be canon basically, so people use it a lot to like
it's like reference,
right? So like Yolin is kind of like where
yeah, Yolin's where everything comes from.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because when we get into Secret History, there's some stuff about Hoid that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I already have thoughts about it. And also I have, like, a bunch of... I did some more, like... It's, like, my old talking point, Esoterica.
Yeah.
Because, like, I went back and re-listened to, like, his Jewish mysticism stuff. Which, you have that, like, video, the, like... the Gnosticism and...
Yes, I want to watch that. Someone made a video called, like, Gnosticism in...
Cosmere
or something like that, and I haven't seen it yet, but I want to watch it.
Yeah, I want to watch it too, because, like, I specifically went back and, like, re-listened to part of... Because, like, I had something... Like, before I was talking about, like, my notes and talking about, like, the different parts of God with, like, the Sephiroth and whatnot, the, like, emanations of God. But there's, like, another thing he talks about later in a later one that is maybe more relevant to what's actually going on here with, like, the Klipot and... Which literally means, like, shard.
Yeah, you're
like,
right.
They're, like, you know, and the way he describes them as being, like, fragments of God or whatever.
Right.
Like, just God's curiosity.
Yeah, out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that intent out of balance with other...
Right, and so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that, especially because it's, like, the number of things I'm, like, curious about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like Dishardic.
Dishardic, 2 shards.
Which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Dishardic as opposed to bishardic.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh, does that mean it's Greek or Latin? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think it might be Latin then. Di is maybe Latin and bi is Greek. Yeah, because, like, Bible, it's, like, 2 books, and that comes from Greek, because it was, like, a lot of stuff was Greek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. The Bible, because Bol is for, like Biblio and stuff, and, like, bi, 2, so it's, like, it's 2 books.
I feel like I should have known that. How have I never...
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think that's correct. You know, a book of books, as people say. But yeah, also continuing to dunk on the Lord Ruler.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holding back technology.
Chris is correct in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy, and, like, seeing the Lord Ruler show up again.
Yeah.
In like it was so interesting reading Secret History. We'll need to, like, sort of move on to that soon. I don't know if we have anything else really here to talk about.
No, not really. Just that Silverlight was mentioned, which is just where Chris is
from.
Is like working from and stuff.
Gotcha. Oh, and
it seems to be like a mix of different people around the Cosmere. Go ahead.
Investiture.
Yeah.
That is one of those terms that I had heard.
Yep.
Like, that just sort of, like, heard without context about Cosmere, and so this is sort of, like, you know, getting some sense of what that maybe means.
Yep.
And, like, magic. It has to do with, like, the magic.
Yes, yeah.
And, like, I get, like, my theory, it would seem, is that, like, magic seems to mostly come from shards. And so it's, like, you get investiture from shards, and that lets you do whatever magic. But also, it's, like, Feruchemy doesn't come from ruin or preservation, it would seem.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this one was, like, known to mankind before, like,
Yeah, but they made the planet.
They did make the planet.
Like, itself and all the people.
Right.
And stuff. It just they have, like, more of preservation, like, in them, or whatever. Yeah. So, like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, because he's like, Hemalurgy is of ruin.
Yeah. Allomancy.
Allomancy is of preservation, and Feruchemy is of neither.
Yeah.
And so it's like... Tilly!
Come here. Tilly just knocked our mic.
Gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah. Tilly just knocked our mic over.
Just fully knocked the mic over. That's so rude. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, what's the deal with Feruchemy? Where does Feruchemy come from? How do, like, what does it all mean?
Yeah. I think it comes from the both of them more equally.
I guess.
And Hemalurgy is, like, ruin.
Yeah.
Preservation.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, investiture, it's a term I had heard. There's, like, a whole thing. There's, like, some, like, post that I had seen where it's, like, you know, questions for normal authors, questions for Brandon Sanderson. It's, like, could so-and-so eat something?
Yeah, eat all the investiture of something. And,
and generate infinite whatever and get rid of the magic of whatever. And I'm just like, what does any of this mean? So getting a little bit of that bigger Cosmere picture kind of going on.
And we get that a little bit too in this, like, I
can't
Secret
think
History
today.
itself.
I can't think. My brain isn't working.
Oh,
none of the words, like, I want to say any of the words, and none of them happen. I think partially it's because I was just reading through Game of Thrones to, like, highlight stuff.
Yeah, so then everything has disappeared.
Yep, so all of the Cosmere stuff is just, like, anytime I have to say a Cosmere word, I'm just like, no.
Yep.
It's not there. I'm like, even just Secret History, it's just like, we're about to read Secret History, and I'm just like, the words, they don't happen. So are we ready to move on to that?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Alright, Secret History, Part 1, Empire. Yeah, so we start with with Kelsier's death. Well, not right at the moment of his death.
Yeah, but basically.
Yeah, him using the 11th metal.
Yep.
And being like, alright, I'm here. Time to burn the 11th metal. And it's like...
And there's 2 of him? What the fuck? Okay, what does that mean?
What does that mean? He looks like rugged mountain man, kind of... Can I use this?
Right.
How can I use this? And Vin finds out how to use this, but he does not.
Right.
And he's like, well, I guess it's plan B then.
Yep.
Time to become God.
Yep.
Yeah, so then... He flares it, and he sees him, like... using the Well of Ascension.
Well of Ascension, yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And we get a little bit more about that much later in Secret History. But right now, he's dying.
Yep.
he's getting smacked in the face.
Yeah.
And we see him die. He's also like, before he actually dies, he's like, sorry. Like in his head, he's like, they might hate me for this, but, hopefully this all works out. And then he dies, and then he, like, wakes up in the afterlife, essentially. Although we will, again, learn more about that as it goes on. And God's there.
Yep.
And he's, like, kind of a shorter guy with black hair.
Yeah.
And he's wearing, like a coat that's long, and, like, a skirt, and a shirt that's, like, tied up or whatever. And... And Kelsier's just like, oh man.
Yep.
You're telling me God's real? Yep. And he just punches him right in the face. And I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be back with Kelsier.
Oh, hell. There's actually a God? Yes. Kelsier decked him. It was a good, clean punch. Thrown from the shoulder.
Dox would have been proud. I wonder if... something is funny to me about the fact that Dox would have been proud as opposed to, like, Ham.
Yeah.
Considering Ham's, like, the military guy. But Dox was the one that he was, like, friends with.
Yeah.
Ham was just, like, part of the crew. Which, like, he was friends with the crew, but,
but I think he was a bit closer with Dox.
With
Dox. Kind of like right-hand man type of,
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I'm just like, I love it. It makes me so happy.
And he thinks about Dox a few times throughout this, where he's like, Dox would be proud, or, something like that.
Yeah, Dox does come up a few times. Yeah. He punches God. God's like, well, that's not happened before.
Yeah.
And
he goes, where he fell apart. God fell apart.
Oh, yeah, because he, like, falls apart, and then, like, as more people are dying, he's appearing to all of them.
Yep. Yeah, nobody's ever done that before. What, really? No, souls are usually too disoriented. Some do run, though.
Oh, and then later, Kelsier does run. It's like, oh, you are a runner. Yeah, because... So, Kelsier's here with God, and he calls him Fuzz.
Yes,
which I love. And he's like, you could try calling me my lord. That's a horrible name for a crew member.
That's a terrible nickname for a crew member. Crew member? I need a team. And as you see, my options are limited. I'd rather have Dox, but he's got to deal with the man who's claiming to be you. Besides, the initiation to this particular team of mine is a killer.
Yep. And he is very interesting. One, I love that we're recruiting God.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. God's on our crew now, but also God, because he's preservation, because this is preservation.
Yes.
he does have another name, which I think is maybe said towards the end.
I think it is said. I'll just say Laris.
Laris.
Yes, L-E. You know what? I was going to spell it. I'm not confident enough.
Right. Yeah.
I know it's L-E.
Mm-hmm. Because we find out that Ruin is A-T, A-T-I, presumably, where Atium, the metal name, comes from.
Yeah, Laris.
Laris. L-E-R-A-S. Yeah, and
his metal is Lerasium.
Oh, okay. We have not encountered that yet. That's one
like
of them.
Like the Mistborn.
Oh,
metal.
The metal that makes you Mistborn. Gotcha, gotcha. That makes sense.
Because ATM, AT.
Mm-hmm, and then Lerasium. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Preservation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that he's joining the crew.
Yeah.
And something else. You know. It's the most frustrating when you're just like, I had it and now it's gone forever.
Are you talking about like him as like preservation, like talking about?
Yeah, he's preservation. He loves the Lord Ruler because the Lord Ruler is eternal.
Yes.
And that's right up his alley. Yep. And it's part of the whole, and it's like, well, I don't condone what he does, but I mean, it's better that he's like, he's so perfect, he's eternal.
Yep.
And, preservation, again, it's like, Ruin and preservation just on their own are not good. Like, we like preservation more than Ruin, because we like for things to be preserved more than we like for them to be ruined, but it's, Ruin is also change, and you need change, and also just because something is the same doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah,
and like the Lord Ruler is the same and unchanging for 1,000 years or whatever, but that doesn't mean that he's good.
Yeah. Why not stop him? If you disagree with what he does, then do something about it. Now, God said, that would be hasty. What would removing him accomplish? It would just raise another leader who is more transient and cause chaos and even more deaths than the Lord Ruler has caused. Better to have stability. Yes, a constant leader.
Would it cause more deaths?
Right.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those, I don't know, like utilitarian, like arguments against utilitarianism, where it's like, yeah, but there's technically fewer deaths. And it's like, the system should be about eliminating suffering rather than just being like, well, these people can be really happy, while these people are the ones who die and suffer. But, it's less than if we just, did this other thing. And it's like, one, I don't think that's true. But also, we should be looking to reduce everyone's suffering. Even if the highest peaks of happiness are less, that's fine if
everyone is
not suffering, but Kel, he kind of like,
in this whole conversation, he's kind of like trying to get information out of Fuzz, and like trying to figure out, like, he's like asking, like, well, how come, like, the Lord Ruler can live so long, whatever, like, trying to survive or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's a special case. He has ways of not dying in the first place. And if he did die, he'd last even longer. Oh, indeed, he ascended, if just for a short time. He held enough of the power to expand his soul. Got it. Expand my soul.
Right, because the thing is that he's being pulled to the beyond.
This whole, like, little bit here.
Yes, and we see other people, like, going to the beyond, and it's like, what is it? It's beyond.
Yep, and says, fucking
Fuzz, like, talks about it, and we see, like, other people die and then, like, go off, and he's like, most rational people want to move on.
And, like, he mentions, like, Mare, and is like, is Mare in the beyond, or whatever? Like, she went. Yeah,
she came through. Which is funny, because I think he, like, asks that again, like, later at some point.
He asks it a few times and thinks about her a few times.
Yeah. But he's like, all right, gotta expand my soul. And he is also like, is like, I forget exactly what he asked, but like, if there's like a way that he can do that right now, and it's like, no. And he's like, he's bad at lying. He's like, wait a second. The Well of Ascension, like, he moved it. Is it nearby? And it's like, he runs over to Credit Shaw, and it's like, oh, you are a runner. And he is running over there. He's able to, like, move through walls and stuff. Because, like, everything's, like, mist and fog and whatnot. And
it seems to, like, look like mostly like the physical world, but, like, in
but like
kind of in mist or whatever.
And all the people are made of mist, but they have a light inside of them that's their soul, and metal is also, and he's like, metal and soul are the same thing. Who would have thought? Which again, it does make me think of that Greek thing, the like, I think it's Plato's Republic, where the noble lie. Yeah. Where you justify the caste system by claiming that the gods put different mixtures of metals in your soul. Yeah. And that's what determines what caste you're in. To have this perfect society. It's very interesting. Yeah. So yeah. And he runs off to the well, and he's like being pulled, he's like fading away, but he can last longer than normal people because of being an allomancer. Yeah. Yeah. And he eventually gets like kind of like right up to the well, but it's like fading away when he's like, "Come on, Fuzz, just like I'll show you something like you've never seen before." Yeah, because he notes at one point how like human preservation is. Yes. Yeah. And like how he can be like sort of amused by things and find things interesting, and so it's like, come on. Yeah. You want to see something spectacular? Help me live. I'll show you spectacular. Mm-hmm. Very well. Be preserved, Kelsier, survivor. And then he pushes him into the well. Yep. And then Kelsier's trapped in the well. Yep. But he gets to live. Yep. Yeah, and he's like, I warned you, this is a prison. Mm-hmm. I'm alive, according to a very loose definition of the word. Yep. It'll do. Yep. Yeah, and he has like become like part of preservation's power at the well. At the well. Yeah. So he's sort of like in some ways become one with preservation in that like little bit of him. Yeah. Which will end up being like important later. Yeah. There's also a bit where talking about like the flaring during the moment, like flaring the 11th metal during the moment of transition or whatever. You got a glimpse of the spiritual realm. Yes. We talked about that before. Yes. Got a glimpse of the spiritual realm, which I feel like makes some sense of like. At the end of the last book, yes, when Elend flares the atium, he gets a glimpse of the spiritual realm as well. That was honestly part of why I wanted to read this next, was like there's a lot of questions that you had at the end of that get like explained explicitly here, and I was just like, I don't want to just. Yeah. You know, we should just read this. Yeah, it's like the only thing that I can imagine is like sort of the spoiler is just sort of the existence of Ghost Kelsier. Right. And I'm just like, but that's fine. Yeah. That's fine if I know that that's a thing. Yeah. Yeah, there's technically kind of more, but you wouldn't really even know where or what or how it is a spoiler, so it doesn't. It's just one of those things where it's like, I'm sure that like later when I'm reading something, I'll be like, oh, I know about that because of Secret History, but I don't think that'll like take away my enjoyment. I think it's quite good to read after Era 1 because it's like really fresh in your mind. Yeah, I really kind of wished I had done that. I'm glad to have it so fresh in my mind, and also to just like having finished the series and then to sort of like go right back to the very beginning of it. It is very nice. It's like, oh man, remember, like it's been so long since we've been with Kelsier, and then we're with Kelsier this whole novella, and it's so fun. It's so nice to just be like back with him, and like see him doing more shit, because he was so fun. And we only got him for like one book, and like it feels like he's such a big figure, you know, and like you feel his presence like the rest of the series, but like he's not physically there. So then you kind of get like the rest of the characters where you like kind of remember him through them and through how they're remembering him, like kind of in their grief. Like they have a different view of Kelsier after he's passed than when he was alive. That's just like how it is. Yeah. And it's interesting. Yeah, it is. And it's like, also listening to the audiobook, you can tell that he recorded this later. Because the Lord Ruler sounds different. And Spook also sounds different. when we get to hearing Spook. Michael Kramer's like, it's been 10 years. Yep, it's been so long. But yeah, it's so nice to like go back and see Kelsier again and like spend time with him, because it's like in the first book when Kelsier dies, I'm like, it's so sad, and it's so like you just kind of expected him to be around longer.
Yep.
I'm like, what's he gonna do? He just fucking dies.
Yep.
And so, like, to get to sort of, like, have more of him.
Yeah. And I really like knowing that, like, you can see the bits of, like, Kelsier in the background
of the series, and it's like, and I'm like, why is Kelsier actually, and then to get, you know, this explanation as to why. And it's like, it's in character for Kelsier for him to try so hard to not
he's
fade
trying
away.
Everything to survive. That's his whole.
That's his whole thing.
And it comes up a few times throughout this. Like,
and preservation,
survival.
Yep, and preservation is like, you know, it's like you served ruin most of the time.
Yeah.
But I can't appreciate your knack for self-preservation.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Yeah, because it makes sense that Kelsier would be sort of, like, more ruin-inclined. Yeah. Just the way that he's just murdering, causing chaos.
Yeah.
In his plan, general chaos was under him.
Yeah, we'll get to it, too, because there's a few things that he, like, he thinks about as we're going on, like...
Yep. He was a revolutionary. He was an agent of change.
Yep, absolutely.
But we needed some change.
Yep.
You know? Like, the Lord Ruler was bad.
Yep.
And the Lord Ruler shows up.
Yep.
Because he dies and Kelsier's at the well. And then the Lord Ruler shows up. And he gets to be sassy at him.
Yep.
A little bit. And the Lord Ruler just immediately fucks off.
Oh, yeah.
He immediately goes off to the beyond.
Yep.
And it's like Kelsier is kicking and screaming to live. But not just to live, to continue to help.
To help his friends and the rest of the world that are there.
And it's like the Lord Ruler here. He could have stayed around, and he could have, like, tried as hard as he could. He knows more than Kelsier does about any of this.
Yeah.
Like I know that he doesn't know, like, everything.
Yeah, but he definitely.
But he had, you know, preservation's power for a little while there,
he could even fucking just tell Kelsier a whole bunch of, you know, like just give him the lowdown of, like. Of ruin and all that, because, like, he's still kind of figuring that out all throughout this. Like...
Yeah, he could, and it's like he could try and do more to help the people who are alive and who are left behind and stuff, and he just doesn't.
Nope.
He doesn't even try.
Nope.
Because...
Not for a second does he think about it.
No, because he's a selfish asshole.
Yep.
Like, he's, you know, it's like, oh, he did these things to, like, help us after he's gone, but it's like, he can't be bothered to actually, like, try.
Yeah. He wanted his name to be on the help.
Yep.
That's why he left that. So if he died, he could still be responsible for saving the world.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. Yep. Truly, it's just like, he wasn't a good guy.
No. I really like that comment. We got a comment from someone talking about you know.
Yeah.
Like, the rehabilitation of the Lord Ruler is a bit.
Right, yeah. Because I can find it right here. You're going to hear my clicking. Yeah. Yames.
Gotcha.
IAMES chosen. Yeah, Brandon really messed up trying to rehabilitate the Lord Ruler. I can't wait for Secret History. Well, you're in it, baby. You're in Secret History. Yep, and it's like Atreides 213 is the person who's been going through and commenting lately.
Well, hello.
Yeah.
You made it here.
And then
we've loved seeing your comments.
Yep, and then good old DM.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's been fun. Yeah. Anyway. Oh yeah, I forgot about this comment from a while ago. But anyway, it's not important.
Yeah.
The Lord Ruler, having him show up for just a little bit and then immediately fuck off was so funny. It's just like, he just left. It's like, yeah, most rational people want to move on. And I think, and that's definitely gonna be sort of Kelsier's thing, I feel, is part of his sort of, like, character arc as a ghost moving forward is probably eventually going to be learning to, like, let go.
Yeah.
And move
I can
on.
definitely see that, because it's kind of throughout this is his, like... He both really wants to survive, but he also really wants to just move on and be with Mare, but also, he, like, every time he thinks about it, he immediately is just like, no, but I have to survive. You know, like, it's so...
And, like, it's... And the thing is that him surviving and holding on and, like, helping and doing all this stuff, it is very helpful. The thing is, though, is that, like, this is really interesting from, like, a Buddhist perspective.
Gotcha.
Because he's a bodhisattva. He has the the sort of the knowledge and the power, the sort of like metaphysical, the like supernatural knowledge and understanding and power. He's not like enlightened necessarily, but he has the option to move on. To move on to the other side, but he chooses to stay behind in order to help the people who are still here. Which is, like, in Buddhism, a bodhisattva, they have sort of, like, kind of achieved enlightenment, but they don't go all the way to escaping samsara, the cycle of samsara, of rebirth, and moving on to nirvana. They stay in the cycle to continue to teach and help other people achieve enlightenment.
And you can even, because, like, he, like, briefly ascended, and he, like, looked in the spiritual realm, all that type of stuff. You can totally...
It's like, he has, like,
It's like, my mind was expanded when he, like was ascended for a while.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. It's like, at some point, dude, you're gonna have to move on, though. Because we have such a thing of, like, you know, passing on, moving on, unfinished business, like, ghosts and all that. But it's like, from another perspective, no. He should just stay and help as many people as possible as he can as a benevolent ghost. You know?
I love it.
So, you know, and that's sort of like the tug, the push and pull, like, staying around and trying to help and but then also, like, you know, wanting to sort of finally get a chance to rest and be with Mare again. I like just like talking about, like, the Lord Ruler dying and showing up. I like a little bit here or whatever where he, like, just starts, like, freaking out. He, like, looks up and is like he winced, turning his eye towards the ceiling as if it were going to collapse on him. He opened his mouth, jaw working, but made no sound. What have you done? What have you done? He was perfect. He was the only one of you that... he was the only thing that was truly, like, immortal. That was eternal, unchanging, the sliver of infinity. No more. and then she's like, she did it. Vin did it.
And then I love Lord Ruler. I killed you twice, yet you live.
It's like, we're all aware of your striking incompetence or whatever he says. It's great seeing him get to be sassy to the Lord Ruler. And the Lord Ruler, he's just like, he's such a piece of shit.
He's, do you know what you've done, Survivor?
It's like, fucking save the world, actually.
You know.
Okay, because the thing is that if he had gotten it again, he also...
It would have just stayed preservation would have stayed the same. And now we have this whole new, like, a lot of people died. We have this whole new world
that is, like, can become better. Like, the world has been restored to what it once was. Ruin and preservation are in balance now. Ruin and preservation are in balance now. Everything's, like, it's for the better. Because if he had... Because, like, he also says that he would have, like, ransomed this shitty world again, or whatever. Like, there's a term that he uses. I mean, he doesn't say shitty, because it's Brandon Sanderson.
Only a year left. So close. I would have again ransomed this undeserving planet.
He's just, like... He's so shitty. It's, like... this undeserving planet, you know, because it, like, they killed him, I guess. But it's like, come on, man. And then Fuzz starts doing his prepared speech for for people who've passed on, and the Lord Ruler just completely ignores him. It's crazy. Because at this point, his, like, I don't know, preservation's mind has already been sort of, like, partially, like, given up. So he's just kind of like a normal person. He's not like an expanded brain necessarily. Like
he is, but
like he is and he isn't.
He is, but he. From what we see in this, I think his attention is super divided. He can't, like, focus on things very well and get stuff, like, you know.
He can't be quite as everywhere at once as he should be.
Basically.
And then he just gets, like, worse and worse. As it goes on.
And so I think there was maybe one more thing that I wanted to say in this section, which was kind of preservation talking about like his plan or whatever, talking about
because he'll mumble about his plan every now and then.
He's killing me, you know. He wants me gone before the next cycle, though. Perhaps I can hold out. You hear me, Ruin? I'm not dead yet. Still here. I know you're listening, changing what I write, what I have written. You make our religion all about you. They hardly remember the truth any longer. Mm-hmm. Subtle as always, you worm.
You worm.
I needed a sign, something he couldn't change. A sign of the weapon I buried. The boiling point of water, I think? Maybe its freezing point? But what if the units change over the years? I needed something that would be remembered always. Something they'll immediately recognize. 16.
16. The number of elementic metals. There's 10 elementic metals.
Which, no!
Which, here's the thing. The Lord Ruler was intentionally suppressing that information.
Yep.
Which is like,
it directly goes against his plan.
His plan.
Yep.
like he was actively like sabotaging things
because
as
only
well.
the Lord Ruler needed to know.
Mm-hmm. Only he needed to know.
So like it didn't really matter.
Even in his stuff that he left behind.
Yep. He didn't prepare them for that. No.
He didn't prepare them for that. He didn't leave them all the medals.
Nope.
He didn't tell them about all the.
No.
It's just like. He's so... yeah, I fucking hate the Lord Ruler.
Yep, he's the worst. And now he's officially dead in the Beyond Dead.
He is dead in the Beyond Dead, which you said that Sanderson has said that he's not explaining the Beyond.
Nope.
It's
he wants to leave it like up in the air for any like characters and their faiths and different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't want to confirm or deny anyone's.
Right. It's one of those, like we get sort of like an afterlife in a sense, but we get like the real sort of like afterlife, the beyond. The
beyond that not even the shards know anything like about really, because like.
Yeah.
We've heard from both, like, Ruin and Preservation. Well, I don't know if we heard from Ruin, but we've heard from Preservation that he doesn't know anything past there.
Right. And it's very interesting, because it's like, you can't come back from there.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you go, and then you're gone. And so there's just no way to get information back from there. Yeah. And, it's like, was there anything else? I feel like there was maybe something else. But I've been having... thoughts leave.
We've been kind of like running through this. There's I mean, we
has he done the like going into the pool yet?
No, that's in this next.
That's in the next one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I think we're all good in that segment.
Segment. Yeah.
Segment.
Section. Segment. Earlier today, we were ordering French toast for like DoorDash. I was going to like go pick it up and stuff. And it was French toast.
Delicious French toast.
And then delicious...
delicious French toast.
Yep, delicious French toast. And we were just losing it. We were losing it over delicious French toast. I'm like, I can't make that the title of this video, but it would be fun, though. But it would be so fun. I've been thinking about what the title of this should be since reading it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about just like... recruiting God, or like God joins the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, something like that. Jod? Yeah. God joins the crew, God has joined the party, something like that, maybe.
That's fun.
Yeah. But that's the end of part 1. Yep. Part 2, well.
Yeah. So Calster's real bored and going kind of crazy, and he wants something to write on, and he can't physically write anything.
No, and I love that part of it was like getting like strips and like tying knots to make a language of knots, and that's a real system. The quipus.
Is it like South America, right?
Yeah, in like South America, they're the quipus, and they're like definitely a number system, but maybe also a writing system with those knots, because they haven't been able to like figure them all out. Right. I think is the thing. But yeah, it's just like you have like one strand, and then you have like strands coming off of that one, and then you tie like knots.
Like in different places.
In different places and different types of knots to indicate like numbers for like record keeping and stuff, as well as perhaps also being like a writing system as well. And it's fascinating. It's so different from like what we normally think of as like a writing system. That's just like, I love it.
It's
we'll just make language out of anything, and I love it. It's great. We got to, like, we just have to.
We have to make it.
We have to make language out of something. Like, if you can't speak, you develop sign language. Like we were just watching a little thing about like the Nicaraguan kids who are all like put together in a deaf school.
Yep, and so they all like the kind of the older kids ended up kind of...
Because it's like, they would have, the kids would have signs that
from their own home places.
From their own home. Like, in their home, they would have certain signs that they would do just with their family.
Yep.
And so then when they're all together, they start, like, sharing those signs.
Yep.
And the older kids would just, like, have the vocabulary, and that would just kind of be it. But then the younger kids start developing sort of, like
grammar and
like
stuff.
grammar and, like, innovations on the initial sort of vocabulary. And it just sort of, like, develops on its own. And it's so great. They just, like... spontaneous, because you gotta communicate with your parents, so you come up with home signs, and then you gotta communicate in an actual deaf community, because we've made one by putting all these kids together.
And then now everyone has a whole bunch of their own signs, so they all gotta come together. And,
It's great. Like, we gotta just make language and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I can kind of see where Nerdy is coming from when he's like, they just learn writing, but it's like, if you already have another way of communicating... that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to learn reading and writing.
Yeah,
like
they also have two writing systems, and one of them is considered reading, and one of them isn't considered reading, so it's like...
It's like a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Right, it's just like... Because I keep thinking about it, because it's like... There was a whole thing with, like, the Greeks, and, like, other... Like, this has happened multiple times in history, where it's like... People will say, no, actually, writing's bad, you should just remember stuff.
Right.
You're gonna become stupid because you write things down and you don't know how to, like, remember things. Like, the fucking Greeks and shit, you know, were like that, at least for part of the time. Like, we have writings. People talking about these people being like, writing's bad. You'll just forget everything. It's crazy. We haven't brought that up in a while. But I still think about it. Every now and then I just think about Nerdy being like but
they would just learn to read.
They would just learn to read, and I'm just like, I can't stop thinking about it. Just every now and then there'll be just like little things, you know, that there's Tumblr guy. There's that one guy's One Piece power scaling chart that just baffles me to no end. I always think about it because I'm just like, those two vice admirals who we've like hardly seen, but they were like candidates to be admiral, so they must be like super strong, and it's just like, and they're like above Big Mom, and it's like we've hardly seen them, and I'm just like
there's no way.
What are you doing? It kills me, and I think about it sometimes, and I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah, they were candidates, and then they found Fujitora, and great, like, what do you mean?
Yep. It's like, yeah, well, clearly they're stronger than Big Mom, because Big Mom's not actually strong, because, I don't know, fucking, you know, the Yonko are just, it's so silly. I'm just like, who, like, I don't know. I'm like, I have to choose to believe that this is just rage bait, but part of me is like, I don't think it is.
Yeah. It's hard to tell on Twitter.
It really is.
Especially with One Piece. Well, I mean, just in general on Twitter. Rage bait's bad on there.
Yeah, Twitter's so bad. It's like, I need to
get off of there.
Yeah, it's like, I need to get off of a lot of social media. But we were wanting to go to DashCon.
Yeah, we did want to go. Apparently there were only 500 tickets total.
And it sold out
in 30 minutes.
In 30 minutes, and it was
crashed
very
the
sad.
site and sold out in 30 minutes.
But hopefully this will go well.
Yeah.
Hopefully DashCon 2 will go well, and then we can get more DashCons.
So I saw that Strange's friend couldn't even go.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
They did like a cosplay or something.
Yes, I saw that as well, because I do follow Strangeons, who is great. I mean, see, the thing is that anytime we would recommend any channel, it's like, statistically, it's more likely
you've heard of them Strange than
us. But
if you haven't, fucking watch Strange Eons. It's great.
Very good shit. But yeah, we wanted to go. Yeah. But
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, but that's okay. Hopefully in the future they'll do more. Like, if DashCon can become an actual, real, regular...
Like, the wild thing is, I legitimately looked at tickets for the original DashCon. I actually tried to go to the original DashCon. Yeah. I didn't, but, like, I legitimately... Like, I was on Tumblr at the time. I was in the target audience for it.
It's one of those funny things, because, like, DashCon happened later than I think that it did.
Yeah, it was... Yeah, it was, like, 2015...
Yeah, and it's just like, that is longer ago than I think it is, but also later than I sort of expect, because in my head, DashCon has always happened.
Yeah.
You know? DashCon has always existed. But yeah, what I think would be really funny, I think that the funniest outcome is that DashCon 2 goes well. We get more DashCons, and they continue to, like, do better and grow until the point that it becomes, like, more popular than Tumblr, the website, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, that, like, people know about DashCon and go to DashCon and don't really know about Tumblr.
That would be wild.
Because, like, DashCon doesn't necessarily tell you that it's about Tumblr.
Yeah, because it's specifically not used, it doesn't use the name Tumblr. Because that was the whole first convention tried to say TumblrCon, but they were like, you can't call yourself TumblrCon.
Because you're not, like, an official thing with Tumblr, and so it's DashCon because of the Tumblr dashboard. But it's just sort of like... So yeah, I just think it'd be really funny if DashCon becomes huge, and then, like, Tumblr dies, like, actually dies, and then DashCon just continues.
That would be sad. It's one of the few left.
It really is.
It's one of my few internet homes that have that has mostly stayed.
Hey, shout out to anyone who comes to these videos from Straub's Tumblr.
Yeah, I post them on there. There's like a Cosmere blog or something that's been reblogging it.
Fucking sound off if you're from Tumblr.
That's been my internet home for a long time.
I have been on Tumblr more than I ever was before. Now, because, like, I'm not on Twitter and stuff. Although it's still just like... It's still like I go on there and I see how bad everything is in the world and I'm like, I need to stop. But it's also the only place that I see fucking, like, draw-fee content.
I mainly, like, since I've been on Tumblr for so long and I've had this, like, blog for so long, it's, like, so fandom heavy that, like, I don't see a lot of the, like...
Political stuff?
Yeah. I like, some of that's on there, but, like, the people that I follow mainly are all on there for fandom stuff.
I need to, like, stop interacting like the political stuff and just keep only interacting with, like, the fandom stuff.
The Cosmere, like, community and stuff on Tumblr, great. There's, like, a whole bunch of Cosmere people there, which is super fun. Yeah. It's the only place I can find Cradle stuff, too.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, is that, like, I'm excited for us to... actually start doing Cradle after this. Me too. And yeah, I think it'd be great if we could get, like, Cradle and what's that other one? The one that you're like...
The Last Horizon?
Yeah, because you're like, there's so like no fandom for that anywhere.
No, there's no fandom. There's literally, I think, one artist. Literally one fan artist. She does some great art of Horizon, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's like, we definitely need to also do that one, and we'll be the only people doing Last Horizon first reader content.
Yeah, there's a few Cradle, not very many. And the one Cradle that I watched, the guy spoiled it so bad immediately that I got really angry and stopped watching it.
I think you were talking about that on a previous episode.
He's trying to get his friend into it, and his friend didn't immediately, like... fall in love with the characters because you haven't met them yet, you don't know them yet. You know, like, it's okay. Just give him a second. And he's like, oh, I thought you were gonna like this character because of this, and this is their backstory, and this is their traumatic whatever, and this is this, and this is their power. And I'm like, you've just that literally doesn't happen until book 8. We don't find some of this stuff out until, like, book 6. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I was so annoyed.
It's like whenever you watch any, like, One Piece thing and someone doesn't immediately like Usopp.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love Usopp. And I like Usopp even from the beginning, but you gotta be like, just give him time. Just give him time. Usopp, he has his really good moments, and you will see them, and you'll learn to love.
No, but he was literally just introduced to the character. You didn't even get a chance to form an opinion of them. He's just like, I know you're gonna like this character because of this.
Because of blah, 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 blah.
And just went down the whole list of why he's gonna like this character, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Stop it. Actually, we should probably get back onto...
We probably should actually talk about
I think we did like a 15-minute
we went on a long tangent there about Tumblr,
Tumblr and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, the well.
Back to the well.
Back to the well. We haven't said anything. We haven't even said anything about it. Oh my god. We
might want to mark this as like a tangent segment.
I was literally just thinking that. Anyway. Watch the fucking watch time. Anyway, Yes, the well. Kelsier's going crazy in the well. Yeah,
because he's trying to write. That's what we did start it.
Yes, because we were like, he's trying to write, and then I went off on my shit.
Yeah, he's trying to write, and he can't because it keeps disappearing and shit. Because it's the cognitive realms. It's just, like, crazy.
Yes, because he's a cognitive shadow, and he like learns that from Fuzz.
Yes, yeah. So yeah.
Oh, this was just a funny little thing from the previous section. It's just in the writing of it where it's like, So you could try, my lord, Fuzz said.
Yeah.
It was like, Fuzz, he calls him Fuzz, and it's like, what? Anyway, so Fuzz tells him about him being like a cognitive shadow.
Right.
Like off page. It's like a cognitive shadow, apparently. And he's like, his clothes are just exactly the same. When he tries to like tear them up and change things, they just go back to how they were.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of Teleron.
Yeah. Yes, there's bits of the cognitive realm that feel kind of like
Teleron.
Yeah.
That's I love that word.
Teleron, yeah.
Yeah, Teleron. It's like, it's very silly and kind of hard to say, but there's something about it.
Yep.
And he's going crazy, but he finds out that he can like go into the well because there's like a pool of like water, but it's not actually water. It's like, just like glowing power or whatever.
Yeah.
And he can like submerge himself into it because it's like on the edge, it's not deep, and then as it goes in, it gets deeper, and whenever he goes all the way in, he's like fully under, and he like, it's like pulsing, and whenever he goes under during a pulse, he can pulse out with the pulses and see essentially like Ruin going and talking to people, right? Like going and like whispering in people's brains. And then he also can follow the pulses inwards to where Ruin is. And he catches a glimpse of it and gets real scared.
Yeah.
He
gets real scared. And then he tries it a couple more times.
Yep, and then he's like, well, I'm not doing that. And then after a while, it's like, okay, I'll check again. And then eventually he's like, it like sees him and like notices him, and then he gets freaked out again.
Yep.
Yeah, but he's just like following the pulses out and seeing sort of like Ruin like influencing people.
I like this line. Before, it hadn't seemed to notice, as one might not notice a spider hiding inside a keyhole. This time, though, Kelsier somehow alerted it. The thing churned in an abrupt change of motion, then flowed towards Kelsier, its essence surrounding the place from which Kelsier observed. It rotated slowly about itself in a vortex, like an ocean that began turning around one spot. Kelsier couldn't help but feel that an infinite vast eye was suddenly squinting at him.
I've been re-listening to a bunch of Magnus Archives lately. Which we need to listen to more of.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to a bunch on my own time, and just like vast, unknowable cosmic entity stuff and like descriptions around that, like how these things are described. I've been on a kick of it lately. I've been loving it. Just like
the way the shards and stuff are described and all of that really remind me of some of the ways the entities can be described.
Yes, I love being in the like cognitive realm here and like seeing all the interesting like weird descriptions. I love the weird undescribable shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
like,
so fun.
The mystic and cognitive stuff where it's like things get so huge, things get like that's like, oh, it's hard to describe, and like the feeling, the like mixing metaphors to try and get like these points across, this like big swirling into like a big eye and like the vast whatever. It's just like, I love it. It's some of my favorite shit, and I really, it's like, this is such a good one to read right after, because it's like we're so on the ground in the trilogy. We're on the ground in the real world
with those characters.
We're trying to figure out what some of this like big higher power stuff means, what's going on, like is it real?
Right.
How does it all like work? And then to immediately read this book where like the curtain is thrown back.
Yep, and secret history.
And secret history. And it's one of those things like the curtains get thrown back and you see all of the like behind the scenes of how the production gets made. But you don't know anything about stage production. So you're like, I don't know what all of this stuff is, but boy is it neat.
Exactly.
You know? It's like, wow, looking behind the curtains, this stuff looks neat. I don't know what it all means, but sure it's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of get that. Oh, that makes sense. Someone's like explaining some of the things, you know. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you get a lot of like Cosmere vocab kind of thrown around in this. That's like,
and it's one of those things where it's like I can maybe see, because like there are some people who it's like, if they don't understand,
it's a problem.
It's a problem, and they don't like it, and they don't like having like that sort of like mystery, or like the sort of, you know, Sanderson talks about, and because we've been watching his like lectures lately, the like sort of onboarding, the like difficulty curve in your work, where it's like if you're throwing a bunch of stuff at them right away,
like that will be
you will lose some people.
Yeah.
And so I can see why maybe people want you to read a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't mind not knowing a bunch of this stuff and being like, this will get explained later.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's how I feel.
And to me also, it's like, even beyond that, because Kelsier doesn't know, it's fine that we don't know.
Yeah, because he's like learning these things for the first time, trying to figure it out, doesn't really get it.
Yeah, you're so in Kelsier's perspective that like, like we've just experienced Kelsier's world as he knew it.
Yeah.
And
then it becomes a cognitive shadow, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, you know, it's like we've just read all of, you know, the original trilogy, so this is the world as Kelsier knew it, and then like going into the apocalypse, and then like in this book, it's like we get to see him pulled out of it and being like, all I know is what was in, you know, the real world, and now I'm here, and so we're thrown in with him, and we're trying to figure it out with him, and so, like, he doesn't know, and neither do we. And
here's where he finds out about Ruin, like, in the well, or whatever.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, didn't even, it's like, don't even know about Ruin. And he's so, like, there was so much I didn't know, so much going on behind the scenes I didn't even know about, and so I think, like, Kelsier's now, like, part of it's, like, well, now I know more. Yeah. And so, like, now there's more that I can, like, do.
Yeah.
You know, at least, like, once I get free from this.
Yeah.
And so, like, by the end, whenever he's, you know, running around doing shit, and, like, we get to the end of this, you know, novella, and he's like, well, I just learned all this crazy Cosmere shit. Like, I gotta start doing...
Yeah, gotta do something with it.
Gotta do something with it. Like, he's, like, the thing is... He's about to do some crazy, like, Cosmere heist shit. Like intergalactic heists. I'm waiting for Kel to do that.
Yep.
Do we get Hoyd showing up in this section?
I believe we get him in this section. Yes.
Yeah, where he comes like on his corpse boat.
Yeah. Here it's right here. Because this is an interesting section.
Yes, because I only know that it's Hoyd because you've told me that it's Hoyd.
Yeah.
Although if I had read Elantris, I would recognize that his description was the same as Hoyd's description in Elantris.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So it's like, you know.
Yeah, you should recognize him when you see him. So it's like.
Well, and also, it doesn't get fully explained there, but later in the novella, we do see that she's going to go visit Hoyd, and Kelsier's like, no, don't do that. Yeah. So we do actually get it confirmed later there. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, but we see Hoyd show up on a corpse boat.
Yeah.
He's just like riding on a body.
Yeah, it's, where is it?
But also the person's not actually like dead. Because, well, it's like they are dead, but they're just like a cognitive body, I guess, that he's just like floating on or something.
Okay.
Because Hoyd's not dead.
This, however, was not a figure made of mist. It was a man with stark white hair, his face defined by angular features and a sharp nose. He seemed vaguely familiar to Kelsier, but he couldn't place why. And then a man sat on the floor, one leg up and his arm resting upon his knee.
Because he's like,
but on an
paddling.
object that somehow seemed to be floating on the mists. The white log-like object sank halfway into the mists of the floor and rocked like a ship on the water. And there's an oar. It still is not telling me. Here it is.
Yeah, because it takes a little bit for it to get to the fact that it's actually like a body.
Yeah, and I didn't highlight the section. I did later, but
yeah, because it's like he does. But the thing is that he does talk to the body that he's riding on, and it like responds. It like mumbles to him or something. So it seems like a weird, like, this is a cognitive shadow that he's just kind of, like, writing. And he's like, I'm just a guy. I'm not dead. So, Because, like, Hoyd's not dead. He's just, like, here in the cognitive realm.
Yeah, and he's like, and you claim to not be dead? If I were, would I need this? The drifter said, knocking his oar against the front of his small log-like vessel. It bobbed at the motion, and for the first time, Kelsier was able to make out what it was. Arms he'd missed before, hanging down into the mists. A head that drooped on its neck. A white robe. A corpse. Oh, Spanky here is just a spirit. It's damnably difficult to get about in the subastral. Anyone physical risks slipping through these mists and falling, perhaps forever.
Subastral. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so many thoughts pool together here, becoming what you see around you. And you need something finer to travel over it all. Well, at least I only used one corpse.
Yeah. Talking about how Kelsier caused a lot of death doing his, like, revolution and stuff.
Yeah, I also like that he's mad about destroying the pits.
Yes.
Got stuck here, did you, in AT's prison? He clicked his tongue. Fitting recompense for what you did. Poetic, even. What I did? Destroying the pits, oh scarred one. That was the only perpendicularity on this planet with any reasonable ease of access. This one's very dangerous.
Yeah, perpendicularity is something that comes up a few times, and it seems like ways in which to sort of, like, enter and exit the world. Yeah. Because it's like he ends up, like, fighting Kelsier to get into the well.
And then
once he's in the
realm.
once he's in the well, he can transition from, like, the cognitive realm into the physical world, like coming out of the well. And then, like, taking the bead of Lerasium. And then fucking off with it. And it's just like, how'd you get out? My dude, how did you get out?
Yeah.
You were in, like, a sealed room. Like, because they have to do, like, the duralumin push to, like, get the door, or pull it to get the door open, to get into that chamber. But he just, like...
Maybe he Mistborned it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he got the Mistborn medal.
That's true, but, like, did he have medals on him to then do that?
I mean, if he knows he's going to get... Because he seems he's... picking something out specifically, so maybe he came prepared with medals.
Maybe, but also, did he take it? Because, like, he took it, but did he then, like, swallow it? Or is he, like, gonna go sell it or something?
Yeah, I assumed he took it.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that as well, but also I'm like, maybe he's, like, saving it for some other purpose, you know, that I don't, like... Because it's like, because I have so little information, I'm like, he could be doing anything with it. Like... The possibilities have expanded that it's like, you know so much about Cosmere stuff. Why do you want this? Why do you want allomancy? Either for yourself or for something else, or like, this is a bit of God. So like, there's maybe all kinds of things that I don't know about that you could be doing with this. Which is exciting. It's exciting to not know. And you said that, like, in the second book, when we get there, there's, like, footprints going up to the thing and a place for two of them.
Yeah, there's a place for two of them.
But there's only one. And I'm like, I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah, because it's not really, it's not drawn attention to or anything. It's just, like, glossed over.
Yeah, it's just like, sure, maybe that's from when the Lord Ruler did it before. Who knows? But yeah, I'm just like, and like, I just wouldn't, like, reading that section.
There's no reason for you to look for anything.
Right, and reading this section, I don't remember that at all. You know, I'm not like, yes, that explains those footprints. I'm like, wait, you're telling me there are footprints there? You know? It's like, goddamn, you know, shit like that. Because it's interesting, because, like, there's different kinds of things where it's like, the ones that you're like, oh, that's that thing from before, and the ones where you're like, wait a second, you go back and you're like, that was there the whole time.
Yes, both very fun.
Yeah.
I like this, like, more talking about the perpendicularity or whatever. By doing so, you basically ended traffic through Scadrial. Upended an entire mercantile ecosystem, which I'll admit was fun to watch.
Yeah. I'm thinking, like, perpendicular, it's like, like, cross.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, if you think about, like...
The crossing between...
It's like, there's, like, this is the plane of the living, and this is the plane of the cognitive, and where the two planes, like...
run into each other.
And so you can, like, whoop, whoop, go from one to the other if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and it just pops out after fighting. And he also says something, he says that, like, he was, like, surprised and happy he was able to punch... Kelsier. Yeah, he beats the shit out of him. He's like, he beats the shit out of him. It's like, it's not actual pain. You just think that you should be in pain. Because this is the cognitive realm or whatever. Oh, yeah, and Kelsier, like, does this horrible threat.
Oh,
like,
yes.
let's do an insult battle.
Yeah.
And Kelsier's like, I'm gonna kill you and stuff your finger down your throat or some shit.
Yep.
Like...
It's like, I'm gonna murder you. What? It's like, if you come in here, I'm gonna murder you. Shove your middle finger. It's like, I'm gonna, like, choke you when you're choking. I'm gonna stick your middle finger in your mouth so that you suck it down and choke on your own rotten flesh. It's like, I don't think you know
how this works.
How this game works.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. It's so good. Fucking love Kelsier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we find out that his name is Sophandrius.
Yes.
From Fuzz. And Sophandrius, I was saying to you, I believe is essentially Greek for wise guy.
Which is very, you know.
Because Soph, like, philosophy. Philo is love. Sophie, or Sophia, is wisdom. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. And so, Sophandrius, as in, like, androgyne, or, like, you know, you have, like, androgen, like, androgen blockers, or whatever, the things that block, like, the sort of male hormone stuff, and, like, android, like, comes from, like, man, and, you know, like a robot man is an android. So, like, some people will get, like, particular about, like, robot versus android versus cyborg, you know. And, like, Alexandria is, like, means something like protector of men, or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's like,
I like that.
So, Sophandrius is, like, and then, like, the eus, sort of suffix of, like, you know, gaseous or spontaneous, you know, it's Sophandrius, it's wise guy-ish.
Right.
You know? And I think that's fun, like a fun sort of name for him. And also there's some specific stuff that Fuzz says, talking about Sophandrius.
Got you.
That I want to find, because he talks about, like, him being, like, didn't think he wanted any part of our business or whatever.
Okay. So, I might just say what he says about him.
Yeah.
He somehow used this well to pass from the world of the dead to the world of the living. I see, Fuzz said softly. He dared that, did he? Dangerous with ruin straining against his bonds. But if anyone were going to try something so foolhardy, it would be Sophandrius. He stole something, I think, from the other side of the room, a bit of metal. I thought that when he rejected the rest of us, he would stop interfering.
Yes, rejected the rest of us. Stop interfering.
I should know better than to trust an implication from him. Half the times you can't trust his outright promises.
Yes, and that has some interesting thoughts going in my brain about, because it's like the number of shards and the number of, like, people, because there was, like, there's 16 shards, right? And I'm, like, trying to make some, like, numbers work in my head, because it's, like, in the, like, esoterica stuff, there's, like, 10 emanations. There's, like, 10 of the Sephiroth, but then there's, like, on the other side, there's, like, on the evil side, the sort of, like, the evil ones, but 3 of the 10 just, like, are destroyed immediately. They're too sort of evil to exist. So there's, like, 17 total. So it's, like, there's, like, the 10 Sephiroth, and then there's, like, the 7 sort of, like, evil anti-ones on, like, the other side. And I'm like...
That's interesting.
So that makes, like, 17. And I'm like, there's, like, 16 shards, so it doesn't quite line up.
Right.
And then also with, like... But then also there's the whole thing with the Qliphoth, where it's, like... In a different sort of Kabbalistic interpretation, it's, like... God... So the way it works... A little Kabbalah lesson for you... that I don't even fully understand. Like Dr. Justin Sledge is, like, talking about these things, and I'm like, I don't think I fully understand what you're saying and what everything is. He's like, God is everything, and so, like, in order for God to create the world, it's like, but everything, the universe is full. Yeah. So, like, how is there, like, a nothingness for God to create the world into? Right. So God contracts God's self and creates like a void.
Space of nothing.
Yeah, creates like this void of nothing that God can then like pour some of himself back into.
Yeah.
To create the world. And it's like God shoots a little bit of God's concentrated self into it. And it like fills the space, and it's like these vessels that are supposed to hold God's light, and like as the light like cascades out into the world, into the vessels, it's like hot water in a cold glass. It shatters.
Yeah.
What shatters? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's very unclear as to what's shattering, but those shards are the klipot, and they're like the different aspects of God, like, you know, like just God's curiosity, just God's love, just God's whatever.
Right.
And he doesn't specify how many of them there are in Kabbalah, but those are the demons in the world. Like in Kabbalistic mythology, demons come from the klipot, these like distilled aspects of God.
Got you.
Just sort of like separate pieces of God. But I'm like, what does that have to do with like the Sephiroth? Are those the same? Are they different? Is it still 10? Are these like the Gevura, the like other side, the evil side of the... What is this? He was very unclear to me listening to his lecture, but whatever. It's like, give me the answers. I'm trying to understand Brandon Sanderson over here.
I love it.
But he does talk a lot about like, he also mentions like how like Platonic stuff influences some of these things, and I know that Platonic stuff is also in Cosmere.
Right, because we've talked about like the 3 realms and stuff.
Right, because it's like there's, you know, and the whole like the cave, the allegory of the cave and all that, where it's like, because there's a whole thing, there's like an extended bit of like the allegory of the cave, where it's like, it's very sort of fractal, like, of like, in the allegory of the cave, it's like you have people chained to a cave, and there's like a light behind them, and so they can like the wall in front of them is illuminated, and they like pass like objects in front of the light, and so like the shadows on the cave wall are all that the people know, and so they're like, this is the world as it is. And so then if you take them out of the cave and see the world, they would be like, this isn't real, this is too much, they want to go back into the cave. And Plato is like, the sun is that light, and like the sun shines into our world and illuminates things, and we see them, but that is not the real sort of like world. There's like a real world outside of our cave of what we see the world as. Yeah. With like the sun shining light onto the world, and it creates these like shadows, these objects that we see, and we think that this is the world, but there's like a greater real sun beyond, and that is like the world of the forms, this like perfect ideal world where it's like the light of like that light shines onto these like forms, the world of the forms, these like perfect like forms of things that then create shadows in our world, which is the world that we experience. Right. And so it's like in this you have, they talk about like the light, the like a distant like divine light that like passes through the world. And I don't remember exactly how it was described in here, but it like reminded me kind of that. Yeah, because there's like the divine realm, the cognitive realm, and then like the physical realm. Yeah, because, it's talking about it right here, I think. Mm-hmm. It's, like, talking about, like, going in between worlds. Mm-hmm. Like, then why was he able to come to the world of the dead? It's not the world of the dead, it's the world of the mind. Men, all things truly, are like a ray of light. The floor is the physical realm where that light pools. The sun is the spiritual realm where it begins. This realm, the cognitive realm, is the space between where that beam stretches. Yep. So the cognitive realm would essentially be like the world of the forms that like this divine light shines through to sort of create the real world. Right. Yeah. Spiritual realm shines through to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. So that's, and that's very interesting. And also, there's like some similar stuff in Kabbalism of like, you know, God as like this divine light that shines into the world and creates it and stuff. Yeah, and here's where he talks about like the bit of metal that Hoyd stole. He stole a bit of my essence, distilled and pure. It can invest a human, grant him or her allomancy. Invest. Yeah, investiture. Yep. Yeah, it seems like if you have investiture, you have the magic or whatever. Like, allomancy itself is like investiture.
Yeah.
Like, you take the metal and you're invested with this power from preservation.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yep, the sort of, like, the physics behind the Cosmere magic system.
Yeah.
The sort of, you know, here's Cosmere quantum mechanics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he's still kind of exploring the well and just, like, letting himself go,
Yeah, he's like exploring the pulses. He's arguing with himself and talking about how he was mad even before when he was alive and stuff. And Fuzz keeps popping in and out, and he's not doing so well. He's like got bits missing from him and whatnot. And also, I think he's like seeing how like they put Elend on the throne and stuff and getting upset.
Yeah. Which they were right about.
Yep.
Because, like, there's conversations in book 2 where it's, like Kelsier wouldn't be happy about, like, us just putting...
Mm-hmm. And also he talks about, like, having, like, essentially, like, very much Orto is kind of what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
Because he talks about, like, putting the nobles sort of, like, subjecting them to what they subjected
Yeah, that's what he was, like, looking for.
Yeah, having them be subjected to what the Ska were subjected to. And so it's, like... You know, it very much is, Orto is what he would have kind of done if he had been allowed to.
Right.
And we see how that wouldn't have been good, but also how that's, like, being, like, sort of manipulated by Ruin and stuff.
I think if he were talking to Vin in this moment, I think he would change his mind. Like, I think, like...
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
I think it's what he, at his base, like, he just, like, wants that revenge.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And, like, them to suffer, but... Like, I think talking to...
Yeah, if he actually had, like, the crew to, like, talk to and stuff, he could be, like, convinced and whatnot.
I definitely think so.
Yep, and he...
But he may have put his foot down about Elend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, about being like, no, we're not going to
have him in power.
Yeah, we can't have, like... we're going to do all this just to have a noble in power?
Yeah,
like, what kind of message does that, like, send to the people? I feel like he could come up with, like, a reason, like, an actual, like, thought-out reason as to, like, why it's, like... So we did all this for the Ska, and then we're just going to be like, and now we betray the Ska by, like, putting a noble on there. And, like, that feels, you know... And I can see that, you know...
but his base thing is, like, he wants, you know, the nobles to suffer.
Yeah, for sure. And we get some thinking of him throughout about, like, Vin, and thinking of Vin as, like, a daughter.
Yeah.
And also thinking about, like, because there's a part much earlier on where he, like, is, like, touching Vin's face.
Yeah.
And is, like, you know,
he's like, my child.
Yeah, and, like, he, like, touches, because you can, like, touch things and sort of get, like, a sense of what's going on.
Right,
in the physical world.
We'll get to that, like, once he leaves the well and stuff more, like...
Yeah, because, like, even, like, before like, that was happening some, and he was like, you know, maybe it's a good thing that Mary and I didn't have a child, considering how I'm doing things and how things ended up, you know, how I've sort of, like, hurt Vin in this way. Yeah. Yeah,
perhaps it was a good thing that him and Mary never had children.
Mm-hmm. No. Yep, and then what else sort of happens in this section?
Kelsier's asking Preservation, about, like, the prison and everything, how it works and stuff. And talking about, like, the power and how, like, he's not fully trapped here, like, they're everywhere, and just, like, kind of...
Yeah, the sort of the nature of these, powers and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like, you told me this was your power, that it gathers here. Yes, and elsewhere. But yes, here. Like dew collects, my power gathers in this spot. It's natural. You cannot press so much essence into a system without it congealing here and there.
Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, so this section is largely sort of Kelsier in the well.
Yeah, and there's some, like, good conversation and stuff with...
Yeah, like, a lot of this novella is, like, good sort of conversation between, like, him and Fuzz and whatnot. And
Oh, and then they... Kelsier's trying to get Preservation to stab Ellen.
Yeah, because then we get to the part where it's like, we get back to the well, like, they get to the well to try and do their thing, and it's like, okay, what's the plan? What are we doing? And it's like, she's gonna give up the power, and he's also talking about, like, it has to be her, and all this sort of stuff. It's like, you should, stab Ellen, use that knife, stab Ellen, so that, because preservation has, like, a knife, to, like, stab Ellen. Oh, yeah, because also we saw that, like, Ruin was pretending to be preservation earlier, standing over Ellen, which explains that whole thing, the scene in the tent. Because, like, why is the
There's
Mist
a
Spirit...
whole bunch of, like, craziness with the different Mist Spirits and stuff like that. Because one of them is Kelsier. One of the Mist Spirits that's chasing Vin at one point is Kelsier. One, it's like, sometimes it's Ruin and sometimes it's preservation.
Yeah.
There's 3 different Mist Spirits showing up all fucking over the place.
And so it's just like, what's the deal with the mist? What's the deal with the Mist Spirit? And it finally we get, like, some explanation on that, and it's like Kelsier ends up grabbing his hand and using it to like attack, and he's like horrified because it's like, I'm not supposed to kill, I'm preservation.
I'm preservation. The knife, I haven't actually drawn it in millennia. You speak of acting like him as he pretended I would act. It's horrible. And he calls it old friend. Yeah, the knife. The knife. It's interesting. Yeah.
I wonder what that's about.
Yeah, so seeing he must have been able to...
Yeah, and so, like, that happens, and is like, Vin doesn't give up the power anyway, because she's sort of better than that, in a sense. And then it's like, get him the medal, and that'll, like, save him. And so we get the explanations for that. It's so fun just sort of seeing, like, what's going on sort of behind the world. I really love it. It's just, like, to get it immediately after this trilogy, it just makes the most sense. This stuff's so fresh on your mind. That's great to, like, see, here's what was happening the whole time. Just, like...
all the behind the scenes.
Because this is, like, some spiritual nonsense going on all the time in these books, but you don't get to, like...
don't really know what it is.
What it is, like, directly. But yeah. And so, Vin... expands her soul, does the thing, and then Kelsier gets, like, freed, essentially, because of that. But Ellen also gets saved. And is that sort of the end of this section?
Yep.
Alrighty. Alright, was it part 3?
Yep. Spirit. So he's, like, kind of getting his, stuff together just like after the prison being like, open and everything. Yeah,
he's sort of getting his free. It's like, well, I'm free now.
Yeah, free if dead, man.
And it's like, well, now what?
Yep. And so he like kind of comes. So first he realizes that like some of the crew has died, and he finds out about clubs and
yes, because he talks to Fuzz about that. It's like, oh yeah, no, they died.
They died like days ago, and he was actually pretty shitty about it.
Oh yeah, no, he's real shitty about it.
Yeah. And so there's that, and so then he like kind of grieves for them a bit and stuff, and then Kelsier comes to the conclusion that he wants to beat the thing Vin's fighting.
Yes.
And
because he also he was like, isn't it like because he was part of the well and part of preservation's power, he isn't being like pulled towards the beyond anymore?
Yeah.
Isn't that the thing? It's like he can like choose whether or not he wants to move towards the beyond or not. Or is it just that it takes a while because of his whole allomancy thing?
I think he's, like, good now since he's been connected to it.
Yeah, because he was, like, preserved. Yeah. Because he was, like, be preserved. And he's, like, part of the power for a little bit by being part of the WoW. And so he's, like, able to just kind of, like, wander around for a while. And not...
At this point, he's so invested that it doesn't...
Yeah, he's just like, all right, I'm here, and I'm going to continue being here. And choose not to sort of pass on. And he's like, there's gotta be something I can do. Yeah. And he gets pointed in the direction of the lake?
Yeah, preservation says, like I can't help you or whatever, but I know someone who might be able to help you, and sends him to the lake.
Yeah.
And, because it's, so, like, water in the cognitive realm is like land, and then land is water. So that when they find the lake, it's like this little block of land.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, it's like why is it like that?
It's like a whole like opposite like flip
like
thing.
A weird like inverse thing, which is funny. I'm like, why is it like that?
Yeah.
like what's the deal with that? Because it's like there's only like plants and stuff there like real, quote, plants, like real in the cognitive world plants on the water. So you get the water and it becomes this, like, island. And it's, like, inversely proportional to, like, the depth of the lake. So it's, like, a weird kind of, like, opposite world. And it's, like, why? why is it like that? It was a little odd. I'm like, water thinks about being plants? And land thinks about being water? I don't know.
I think some of the plants are, like, supposed to be, like, sea plants and stuff. Like, growing on the bottom of the... Like,
okay.
And, like, the, like, jungle and stuff, I think it's supposed to be, like, kelp, like, seaweed, like...
Interesting. Okay. That would actually make some sense. Because they do use the term jungle later, and I'm like, you don't know what a jungle is, Kelsier. Kelsier, you don't have a concept of what a jungle is. So why are you using that word? That was, like, the one thing...
Maybe he got it from, like, some of, like, Seize's religions type of thing. Like, a word that kind of got passed on from, like, you know...
Yeah, maybe. Like, maybe it could be something like that. It was just, like, the one thing that, like, while I was, like, listening to it, like, and this shows up, like, later. Like, the whole him being in, like, the jungle is, like, later when he's, like, at the ocean.
Yeah, it's like a jungle.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you don't know what a jungle is. You didn't have y'all didn't have...
Yeah.
Like, y'all had forests, I imagine, but I don't think y'all had, like, jungles.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But he goes to that lake. It was, like, Lake Luthadel or something?
Yeah. Yep.
And there's some people there.
Yup.
It's, like, Chris and some other guy?
Yep, Chris and Naz. N-A-H-Z or N-A-Z-H? N-E-Z-H.
N-A-Z-H, gotcha.
Yep.
Naj.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, Naj. There's Chris of Taldane and Naj.
And Chris has a gun.
Yeah, so it's like, the woman remained seated, though she reached for something at her side, a little tube with a handle on the bottom. She pointed it towards them, treating it like some kind of weapon.
Which is just so funny. It's like, well, by the way that you're handling that thing, it seems like a weapon.
It's just a fuzzy, and I thought it was a bug.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll happen.
Yep. I was like, Shadows, it's you. You're dead.
Yep.
And he's trying to figure out, because, like, he sees that they have fire and is trying to figure out, like, how they have fire.
Yep. How do you have fire here?
Yeah. And it's like, how? Why? Yes, why? I have a very delicate constitution, you see. And death seemed like it would be rather bad for the digestion. One doesn't merely decide to become a shadow.
Yeah. It's like, there's, like, protocol for becoming a shadow or whatever. And he's like, well, I don't know fucking shit about that. But because he's just like, yeah, fucking, I know shit.
Yeah,
just
stumbling through.
Just like bluffing his way through. And like, I know shit, I know things.
And they're surprised that he's talked directly to a shard. Mm-hmm. Like, you've talked to Preservation? Yeah. He's like, yeah, Fuzz and I go way back.
Fuzz and I go way back.
That's actually what he says.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I thought so.
Yeah, like saying he's dying and all of that. Unraveling. So a slow death. He doesn't know how to splinter another shard or hasn't the strength.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And then they mention a bunch of shards.
Yes, they like rattle off some.
So it's like the shards are not God, but they're pieces of God. Ruin, preservation, autonomy, cultivation, devotion. There are 16 of them.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm very interested in because I imagine that we'll be seeing them in different worlds and stuff, and the different magic systems will be based off of these things. Like, already just hearing autonomy, I'm like, that seems like it'd be an interesting magic system, whatever that is.
Yep. And then talking, like, a bit about Adenalcium, and, like, there's an original, like, planet, other planets. There's an original shrouded and hidden somewhere in the Cosmere. I've yet to find it, but I have found stories. Mm-hmm. And then talking about there was a god and Adenalcium, and 16 people together killed Adenalcium, ripping it apart and dividing its essence between them, becoming the first who ascended.
Yeah, and I'm like, was Hoyd, like, also there but didn't participate, so to say? Just the way that, like...
From the conversation earlier, like, he was like...
rejected them or whatever, and so I'm like, in what way? Yeah. Was he, like, maybe gonna be in on it, and then was like, no, I'm not gonna, like, be a part of this, and if so, why? I have thoughts. Questions, thoughts and questions about, like, Hoyd and what he's up to, what his motivations are, and, like, these shards. Like, why did y'all kill God and pull him apart and take his shards and stuff? Like, what led y'all to that decision? Yep. I'm very curious, you know.
Yeah, and then talks a bit more about, like, shards and their power, and, like, talking about, and that thing, it used to be human, like, ruin. The power distorts. There's a person in that somewhere directing it, or perhaps just riding it at this point.
Yep. So it's like, what is the effect of, like, a human having a shard and, like, sort of becoming a shard? What effect does that have on the person and the power? Again, very Magnus.
Yeah. And then Chris is like, Kelsier mentions Drifter and describes him, and Chris is like, the who? Fellow with the white hair, lanky with a sharp nose. Damn. Did he get to the Well of Ascension? Something there, a bit of metal? Or stole something there, a bit of metal? Damn. We need to go. I'm sorry, Survivor. Immediately she's like, we gotta go.
So we gotta get out of here.
And they're like, we were leaving anyway, planet's dying, and she wants to witness the death of a shard, but, like...
Can't do it up close.
Yeah, it's, like, too dangerous.
Too dangerous, gotta leave.
Yeah. And, then they teach Kelsier, or, like, well, Naj gives him the fire.
Yeah.
And knife. No, not fire, just the knife.
Just the knife. Yeah, because later that Kelsier figures out how to do the fire trick.
Right. And then, they point him towards the Irie.
Yep, the Irie, which is just spelled like ire.
Yep, I-R-E.
And I'm just like, that's just an existing word, ire. Why are you calling it Irie? That's just needlessly confusing.
Yeah, but they point them go to where the land becomes solid again, and like basically to the ocean.
Yep.
And that's where you'll find the Irie.
Because he's like, oh yeah, to the ocean. That's gonna take forever. But he finds that he can just kind of like run and keep running so long as he doesn't think about the fact that he should be tired.
Yeah.
He can like run for like a long time, almost like Peter dragging.
Yeah, and they built a city in the place between worlds, talking about the Irie. Oh yeah, and then Preservation kind of gives Kelsier like a glimpse, like into
like the infinite, sort of like expanded mind, the future, the possibilities.
Yeah.
And Kelsier's like, there's he fucking Doctor Strange. You know, I looked at all these possibilities, and there's one where we win.
Yeah,
you know? Not just one, but like, you know,
there's a chance. And,
there's a chance, even if it's a small chance, and so he's like, I'm gonna run off to the ocean. And find the Irie.
And Preservation's like, they won't help. I'm not gonna ask for their help. I'm going to rob them.
Which is very Kelsier.
Right.
It's thieving time. Once again, Kelsier in his element.
Yep.
Like Kelsier, the primordial thief. You know, he is the essence of thievery, and he is literally the spirit of thievery.
That's hilarious. You haven't read Cradle. I'm just gonna say I forgot what we were saying.
Primordial thief?
Yes, thief icon.
Thief icon.
You don't know, it doesn't mean anything, but
no,
got the thief icon.
I'm just, because, like, from the little bit that I know about Cradle, and people kind of having their signature things, and also how it's it's not lit RPG. Yeah. But it has some of those, like, you know, it's like progression fantasy, you know, I'm just thinking about, like, how in RPGs you have, like, thief skill. You know, like, you know, stealing things, and I'm just like...
That's more the Last Horizon series.
Yeah. And I'm just like, the idea... Because I also think about, like, JoJo's, and, like, in part 8, he can, like, steal things with his bubbles. But that ends up becoming weird. How he, like, uses those. Like, the whole stealing things is, like, still kind of part of it, but it's mostly he can, like, move things around with his bubbles in a weird way.
Got you.
He's almost like Law when you think about it.
Yeah.
But not exactly. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, yoink.
Yeah.
The idea that, like, someone in Cradle's power is just yoink is very funny to me. But yeah, so that's part 3.
Yeah.
Part 4, Journey. This is where he starts kind of Peter dragging.
Yep. Yeah, he just starts running.
Running towards the ocean, and he's, like, seeing stuff all along the way.
Yep.
He's like, all water is kind of land. Like, even in people's cups, you'll see, like, a cup of water, and it'll have, like, little plants coming out of it. It says, because, like, there'll be plants coming out of, like, regular cups and stuff that I'm like, you know, it's like, why does water dream of being plants? I don't know. It kind of makes sense, but also, I don't know.
So he comes across, like, a place where he, like, killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
We, like, kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, where he's, like, talking about this town. Kelsier had killed 7 men here, or had it been 8?
Yes.
The Lord, both his sons, his wife, yes, 7, counting 2 guards, and that cousin. That was right. He'd spared the cousin's wife, who had been with child. Mm-hmm. And just, like, a bit of, like, kind of his, you know.
Yeah, because talking about, like, how he did that, and then a bunch of people got killed because of them, like, searching for, like, who did it.
Yep.
And, like, Mayor being like, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. And it was like, we had plans. How could you do this? They murdered a child, Mayor. Sank her in the canal with stones tied to their feet because she spilled their tea. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know. Yep. Like, you get why he...
You get why he does it. It's like, you very much understand. And it's like, the fact that, like, then more people die because of, like, the system. It's like, it's still the system...
right, like...
That's, like, doing it and, like, being shitty.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, not Kelsier's fault that trying to do good causes harm because the system itself is so bad, you know.
Yeah, and he's kind of thinking about, like, that, and then, like, his connection to Ruin, and, you know, that type of stuff.
Right.
And then he, like, as he's thinking about this, he's like, if I died, Kelsier said loudly, if I'd let myself be pulled into that place, I'd be with Mare now, wouldn't I? Mm-hmm. No reply. Preservation, do you know where she is? And, did you see her pass into that darkness you spoke of in that place where people go after this? I'd be with her, wouldn't I, if I let myself die? And
it's like, he already answered that, my guy, but he's just
yep.
still thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this is where he realizes that he can talk to, like, madmen.
Yeah. It's like some people's souls are a bit more, like, open.
Yep.
And they can kind of, like, hear these, like, whispers and stuff.
Yep. And so then he's kind of, starts to do that a bit.
And that's a Ruin thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Because later we find out that, like, Preservation cannot
like
can't talk to those people because Preservation wants to preserve them, wants to, like, shore them up.
Like, fix up the cracks
fix up the cracks in their soul rather than, like, widening them and, like, getting in.
Yeah. And then here's where Kelsier figures out how to fire in the cognitive realm. He sees the misted remains of the old cook fire. Immediately he gained a vision of them in the real world. Not just images, but sensations, almost emotions. Cold wood that somehow remembered warmth. This fire was dead in the real world, but it wished it could burn again.
I am a stick, but you could be fire.
I showed that scene when I was reading that book or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like a while ago. I'm like, I'm going to show you something without context, and I've just always remembered it because
it's a lovely scene.
Because it's a fun little thing. But you could be fire.
That's what.
And I would love to see Kelsier convince a stick to be fire. I think that'd be great. But he's convincing this stick that was already fire to be fire again, which I feel like is easier.
Yeah.
Than convincing a stick that's never been fire to become fire.
Yeah, I love this. This flame had burned for years, feeding the families of many Ska. Countless generations had sat before this pit on the floor. They kept the fire burning almost perpetually, laughing, savoring their brief moments of joy. The fire had given them that. It longed to do so again.
Yeah, because, like, I know that is, like, a thing, like, just sort of perpetual fires and, like, and, like, perpetual stews.
Yeah.
You're familiar with those?
Yeah.
Yep. It's
where you just keep putting
stuff in and just keep this one pot going forever and ever.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
And so then he tells the fire to burn again and be warm again. And it does that.
Yep. And then he can just sort of, like, pick it up and put it in his inventory.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So he after taking a deep breath, he pushed his hand into the fire and grabbed the center of the logs, then closed his fist, capturing the bit of mist that made up the essence of that cook fire. It all folded in upon itself, vanishing. And then he could just, like, put it in his pocket.
Yep, just whoop.
Yep. And then he is, like, further west than he'd ever been. And keeps going. He, like, picks up some, like, more clothing and stuff.
Yeah, I like how there's, like, a bit of clothing in a shop that because the guy never sold it, believes that its purpose is to be admired.
Yeah.
To be looked at and admired. I think that stuff is very fun.
I love it. Yeah, it's The pack he carried was different. He'd taken from an abandoned store. No master had ever carried it. It considered its purpose to sit on a shelf and be admired.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So far, it had still made for a suitable companion.
I love the idea of them being, like, old companions.
Yeah.
Kelsier's crew of objects, except we don't get to really, like, talk to them.
Yeah, and he was just saying in the previous section, like, how lonely he was and stuff. It kind of, you know, makes sense that he'd latch on to this.
Mm-hmm. To these sort of, like, bits of emotion coming from these, like, cognitive echoes of these physical objects. It's really wild.
Yeah, I love it. Like, he planted a staff on the ground before him. He'd recovered that from a body of a dead refugee in the real world and coaxed it to life, giving it a new home and a new master to serve. Mm-hmm. It's just so fun.
Because it seems like, Hoyd talks about, like, oh, so many, like, thoughts pull here.
Yeah.
The idea that, like, these objects are just sort of, like, how people think about these objects sort of creates these cognitive versions of them in the cognitive realm. And so the fire itself doesn't necessarily have the emotion so much as it's just, like, the emotions that people sort of connect to the fire sort of, like, form it in the cognitive realm, and so it sort of becomes, like the fire's emotions in a way.
It's very fun.
I like it.
Yeah, and he also, he has, like, a water skin that he, like, drinks from even though he doesn't need water.
Yeah, it just makes him feel better. I love the idea, it's like, because you think that you should need it, and you think that you should be tired and stuff, it happens because it's the cognitive realm.
Yeah.
I find that stuff very fun.
I also like, abandoned objects were best. Ones that had been owned for a long while, so they had a strong identity, but that currently had nobody in the physical realm to care for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because then they'd have, like, a stronger sort of cognitive connection.
Right.
Because, like, people would have thought about them more, I guess.
Yep.
It's interesting. It's a fun kind of, like, system.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very fun. Mm-hmm. And so then he talks to Ruin through, like, one of his puppets.
Yeah, because like, the things that, like, Vin was seeing, Kelsier sort of sees as, like, puppets being controlled by Ruin.
Yeah. The figure wore robes and had a bright flame red hair. He wore a welcoming smile, but Kelsier could see the spines beneath the surface of his skin. Pricking spider legs, thousands of them, pushing against the skin and causing it to pucker outward in erratic motions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Magnus.
Yeah, it is very...
It's so Magnus.
Yeah.
I kept listening to this being like, it's so Magnus.
I really love his descriptions of, like, these weird, like, out-of-world types of things. They're my favorite bits of his descriptions.
I do too. I really love it.
And so, there's a bit of this conversation about, like, what Ruin is, like, Ruin Shard, and, like, the intent, or just everything. And, like, asking, like, why Kelsier resists and stuff. I don't know, perhaps because you're an evil force of destruction and pain. That wasn't called for. Death is not evil, Kelsier. Death is necessary. Every clock must wind down. Every day must end. Without me, there's no life. There is no life and never could have been. Life is change, and I represent change. And then,
yeah, because he has a bit about, like, I am, like, new birth and the satisfaction of a job well done. It's like those things are also me.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because he says, tell Fuzz to take something long, hard, and sharp and then ram it up your backside for me.
Yep.
As if he could harm me. You realize if he were in control, nobody would age, nobody would think or live. If you'd had your way, you'd all be frozen in time, unable to act, lest you harm one another. But yeah, I also like this little bit, but who am I talking to? The man who would not accept his own end, even though his soul longed for it, even though his wife longed for him to join her in the beyond. No, Kelsier, I do not anticipate you will see the necessity of an ending.
Yep. Kelsier's not one for endings.
Yeah. And then he's like, he thinks about, like, going to the Eyrie. Preservation said he couldn't leave to go where I'm going, and Ruin also can't go. And it's like, running, Kelsier? Those fools in the fortress won't be able to help you. I think that once this world reaches its end, I will pay them a visit. They've existed far too long past what is right. And, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's like, what's up with them?
Yep, and then
we're
done with that part.
Then we're done with that part. Part 5.
The Eyrie.
The Eyrie.
Yep. He's running, and he gets to the ocean, and sees, like, the jungle of exotic plants with the ocean and everything. Well, the bit of land that's over the ocean.
Yeah, because it's like...
That is the ocean.
Yeah, world. It's, the ocean continent.
Yeah, exactly. And he's, like, holding up fish and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, holds the soul of a fish. Mm-hmm. And then he sees, he like, gets directions by, like, feeling the pull on his soul kind of back towards...
Oh, yeah. The land.
Yeah.
And so he just goes, like, in the opposite direction of that, just going out.
Yep. And so then he finds a big structure. Mm-hmm. It is a huge fortress crafted of white stone. It wasn't a city, but it was, like, close enough. Mm-hmm. The light had an odd quality. It didn't burn or flicker like flame. Some kind of limelight. It was very, like, blue light. Yeah,
and I imagine it's some sort of, like, magic or technological, it's like, it's a light bulb, and he's like, how the fuck does this work? Or, a magic light bulb, and he's like, how the fuck?
And then there was, like, there's a big light source in the back. This turned out to be an enormous glowing cord as thick as a large tree trunk. It pulsed with a slow, rhythmic power, and the light it gave off was the same shade as the walls, only far more brilliant. And it had some sort of energy conduit that went into the distance.
Yeah. Don't know what's up with that.
Yep. And then he touches the wall and sees, like, a world with green plants and all of this, like, a whole different place.
And he's like, what the hell? So weird looking. It's all green and blue and stuff.
So he sees, like, this whole different place that these walls seem to remember or something.
Mm-hmm. This world that Mare described.
Yep. And then he's looking at the light or whatever that he's talking about. Like, the walls are, like, glowing blue and stuff. It's that light. It looks a little like the light of souls.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, the stuff here is, like, different.
Yeah.
It's... and he ends up, it's like, it's still kind of incorporeal, but he can't go through it quite like he could go through the walls.
Yeah, he can't go through, like, these walls.
But he can go, like, a little bit into them, because he, like, climbs up the wall by, like, sticking his hand, like, a little bit into it.
Yep.
But they're a little too solid, a little too real to, like, fully pass through. But just enough to give him handholds.
Yep. And they're, all speaking a different language. There's a bunch of guards speaking a different language.
But he's like, weirdly, I can understand them.
Yeah.
And he calls it, like, the language of, like, green...
So, yes, they speak the language of open fields, of green plants, of where these stones came from, and the source of this power.
Yep.
And then, after that, he can understand what they're saying.
Yep, it's like, I can't understand them, but I can. It's like, I hear the sounds, and the sounds don't make sense, but, like, the meaning just kind of, like, comes to him. I think is kind of how it was described at one point. It's not like it's translated, he just now understands them.
Yes.
Yeah.
The words struck Kelsier strangely. On one hand, he felt they should be indecipherable. On the other hand, he instantly knew what they meant. Mm-hmm. And then they're, like, talking, how would a Threnodite have made it all the way here? It defines reason. Like, some, like, alert went off or whatever, and they're searching for...
Yeah, because he was like, okay, I haven't been spotted. And then he climbs up and he's like, okay, maybe I was spotted.
Yeah. So, like, Kelsier crept up and looked... a large chamber where a small group of guards were setting up a strange device. A large yellow gemstone, the size of Kelsier's fist, shone in the center, glowing even more brightly than the walls. The gem was surrounded by a lattice of golden metal holding it in place. All told, it was the size of a desk clock.
Which, like, how do you know what a desk clock is? I mean, I guess they had those.
Yeah.
But it's just like...
And he grew up partially, like, in a noble...
Yeah, it's just, sometimes I have a hard time figuring out exactly where the technology of Mistborn is... Like, they have the canneries.
Yeah. They have, like, electricity and...
They do?
No, they don't.
It's like, I didn't think they had electricity.
No, they don't.
Because it's like, they have, like, the limelights, but you have to, like, heat those up to, like, get them to, like, shine and stuff. Yeah. So it's like, I don't think they have any, like, electricity. They don't have gunpowder, but that was, like, specifically suppressed by the Lord Ruler. I guess they do have, like, clocks and, like, clockwork and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's somewhere in the, like... In like the mid-centuries. They're somewhere in like 1600s maybe. Like pre-electricity, but like post-medieval kind of.
Yeah.
And like, but no gunpowder because that's been specifically suppressed. But we do have canned goods because that's very preservation.
Yeah.
It's specifically like a preservation technology is allowed, but like gunpowder, which was very much seen as like a ruined, destructive kind of technology is suppressed.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting to think about, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a desk clock. Because I guess also that's just my bias of thinking like a digital clock.
Right.
But it's like, no, I guess like...
an actual, like, mechanical...
yeah, like an actual, like, fucking wind up right. Like, you know, old, like one of those old alarm clocks that's like actually like has like little bells. So it's like...
Yeah.
You know, it's like we don't really have those anymore, but like, you know, it's like a mechanical ass, right. You know, wound clock.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like he's describing some of the people that like the creatures seemed mostly human, wizened, dried up. The woman had puckered lips, a bald scalp, and a strange silvery dark skin.
Yeah,
and she glowed faintly with the same quiet blue-white light as the rest of the walls.
Yeah, this reminds me of some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things is like them all being bald makes me think of like because like we watched like the D&D movie.
Yeah.
That like the lady because there's like the lady who was evil and she was like bald and she had like the red robes or whatever and they're like I forget where they're from. They're like the Red Wizards of Thay or something like that.
I wish I remembered that movie better.
Yeah.
I'm not able to pull that up right now.
It's like a D&D thing, but like I think they're like the Red Wizards of Thay or something like that.
Got you.
So it kind of reminds me of that. It also kind of reminds me of something else that I won't necessarily talk about.
All right.
Just with like, well, I won't say what part it is. That's Yeah,
and so then they're talking about like they call him like Ancient One or whatever. Looked like a figure. They're like saw it myself. Tested at the walls, sinking its finger into the stone. And then
I do just love Kelsier as like this guy who doesn't really like the Irie clearly knows so much more.
Yes. Oh, they know. Yeah.
But like Kelsier knows nothing, and he just shows up and it's like
just fucks with them.
Just fucks with, because like who would think to like climb up the wall that way?
And they're looking for something different. Like they then use that like that thing or whatever with the gemstone. They turn it on and it's like, well, nobody from Threnody within a day march from here. It looks like a false alarm. So, like they're specifically looking for someone from Threnody.
Whatever that means.
Right.
You know, it's just like it was like, no, it's Kelsier who's like they wouldn't even think to be looking for.
Right. Because they're looking for some sort of something like
yeah, and so it's just like
something similar to Kelsier maybe, but yeah,
and it's just like it's just hilarious because Kelsier's got no clue and they've also got no clue. It's so fun seeing Kelsier just like causing problems, causing mischief out in the like in the spiritual world. I mean, it's not actually the spiritual world. That's the annoying thing. It's like the spiritual realm. It's the cognitive realm. Yeah, causing chaos in the cognitive realm.
That could be the title. Causing chaos in the cognitive realm.
Yep. Kelsier causing chaos in the cognitive realm. But
that's great. Yeah, so he also thinks about kind of the meaning. He hears the word Irie. He thinks that the meaning, it meant age. And he had a sudden impression of a strange symbol made from 4 dots and some lines that curved like ripples in a river. So there's that.
Yeah, I might just go with chaos in the cognitive realm.
I'm talking about more of the people. The beings all had the same silvery skin, though 2 were a shade darker than the rest. And they're all like real old. Yeah. And they're all like men are completely bald, the women nearly so. And they wore white robes with a hood.
Gotcha.
And embroidery and stuff. And then they're like asking like, not every coincidence is a sign of someone drawing upon fortune. So like that's like just thrown out.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, fortune is probably another shard then.
Yeah. And then in this bit we hear that their kind of plan and the reason why they're here, have this like setup and everything, is they are trying to take Preservation's power when he dies.
Yeah, and don't they make some sort of like reference to like devotion, like capital D devotion or something like that?
Yes, they say devotion, protect us, we will move forward. Yeah.
Yep. I like the idea of these different like shards.
Yeah.
Like I want to learn what they are and what their magics are and stuff.
Yeah.
And also,
haha, we got you.
I mean, you had me a long time ago.
With the Cosmere stuff.
Yes. It's like there's always there's always another secret.
Yep, exactly.
And he has made it perpetually so. that there will forever always be another secret because we don't know what the beyond is.
Yeah.
So there will always, even once we know all the secrets, still be one more secret that we don't know.
I love it. So yeah, they have like a device in the shape of a spear that you can break it and absorb the power within, which will connect you to preservation so you can take the power, and that's kind of their...
A sphere?
Yes.
Yeah, because you said spear.
Oh, did I say spear? Yeah, I meant to say sphere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just kind of...
Quickly, yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny because it would be... Because you can't talk about it being a spear because spears are man's favorite instrument for killing God.
Yeah.
I think that actually is a line that comes from like a video where someone was talking about the like Batman versus Superman movie, and like Batman stabs Superman with like a kryptonite spear, and someone calls it mankind's favorite instrument for killing God.
Got you. I have not seen Batman vs. Superman.
I haven't seen it either.
I saw some videos on it, but...
Right, and it was in one of those videos. It might have, could have been a Folding Ideas video, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me thinks it is, and part of me thinks that it wasn't, so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yep, it's for stealing God's power when he dies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Like, whenever I heard this, I'm like, okay, so, like, how is this gonna, like, play into it at the end? Like, is this gonna be how Sazed gets the power at the end?
Right.
Is it, like, is that gonna somehow? But it ends up going in places I was not expecting.
Yep. Yeah, so then, like, at the end of this chapter, he decides that he wants to... That he knows what he wants to steal from the Eyrie.
It's like, well, clearly that's gotta be the thing now.
Yeah.
And he's like, can't steal it right now, but...
But I've got time, a little bit of time, so he waits for, like, a couple weeks.
Yep, it's like, the thing about, big, safe vaults like this is that they gotta take it out of the vault eventually.
Yep.
and so then, whenever they take it out of the vault and they're like, alright, time to go. Time to head towards the continent, the land ocean, as opposed to the ocean land.
Exactly.
It's like the ocean continent. We gotta go off of the ocean continent onto the continent ocean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the mist land.
Yes.
And he's like, now's the time to cause more mischief.
Yep, and also they're on horses. Kelsier was surprised about that. Procession of 20 people rode on horseback. Horses? Hadn't expected that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, they just, like, made a world.
Yeah, they just have their whole, like, there's a whole place in there.
It's just, like, it's also just, like, Root and Preservation made this world sort of, like, based off of existing stuff.
Yep.
And so it's, like, I'm so curious about what these other worlds are gonna have and not have.
Right.
You know? Because it's, like, Scadrial is very much kind of like our world. Yeah. Seemingly, except for it getting, like, ruined and then unruined back into sort of more like our world. So I'm curious how, like, our world, the other Cosmere worlds are gonna be. Yeah. Because they had humans pre-shard. Right. Yeah. But this one was created by the shards.
Yeah, with the humans from Yolen as a
base.
Like, base.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yep. So then he's, like, realizing they got decoy bags and was like chasing after them and stuff.
And like following like who has the actual one, because it's like this lady, she's got the real one. She wouldn't let it be too far
like
from her.
Elenoe? Is that Elen?
Yeah, Alonoe, which does kind of make me think of Melinoe. Right.
I know how one of the names is pronounced. I know how Rhaina is pronounced, and I think the E name is like Eladin or something?
Speaking of Melinoe, Hades 2 had a major update, and we've been playing it. We still haven't found Ares
yet. Yeah, we still haven't found Ares. I just beat Prometheus for the first time, so... I've
been stubborn and continuing to throw myself at it.
Ones,
Yeah, even though I hadn't played for a while. I got one... And now I'm trying to do a second one up on the surface, and it's just not been going how I want.
I did a couple runs trying to do fear stuff, like, where I left off, and I'm like, stop it. You need to get the game back in your fingers. Like, you gotta get the muscle memory going before you start adding stuff.
Yeah, meanwhile, I've been stubborn and not doing that. I'm like, no, I refuse.
It's like, gotta relearn the muscle memory, gotta get this back in here.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. or whatever.
Yeah, back to his heist. He's kind of just like fucking with them.
Yep, he's just like, because he's like going under the ground.
He goes under the ground and then puts his lips just up a little bit just to whisper like next to her head.
And just be like pretending to be ruined and just like whispering shit to her.
He thinks like Docs would like be like dying laughing. Like he would love this.
Fucking love to see this. It's so funny. I'm just being like, what if I just went down into the sea?
Yep.
And just like
Yeah, and so then he just keeps doing this for like days. He just
like
keeps
freaking
going
him out, building paranoia.
Yep.
Paranoia. Yeah. And like getting them all freaked out and agitated.
Yep, and they think it's Ruin and stuff because
he's pretending to be Ruin.
Yep. It's fun.
And then they're like out in the jungle.
Yep.
And he like sets up like the flame and the like in his like cloak and like a cloak and stuff to be like a disembodied burning figure.
Yep.
To like continue to freak them out and like make them like split up and stuff.
Yep, and then made them think that Elenui, I'm gonna just say it that way.
Yeah, I don't
like
remember
melted.
Yes.
like sunk through the ground like
because
robes and
because he's like wearing the robes and then just like goes into the ground. Seems like she's just like disappeared.
Yeah.
And then gets like her separated from the group and then like kites her away a little bit and like gets them super separated and like swaps the I forget how exactly he like finally like gets the actual.
He just tells her to leave it.
Oh yeah, he just
leave it there, and he lets her take some of like the jars or whatever, like the
Yeah, because it's like he's pretending to be Ruin, and essentially like because he has her like alone and stuff, is like you can't do this.
The jars. Yeah, the jars of the glowing liquid that they were like drinking throughout, like because like these people were like drinking some of that glowing liquid, and he left her with a bunch of the glowing liquid.
Right, because that's the thing. Yes.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
And they also like it seems to like look similar to the power in the orb, like the jars of liquid looks like a like.
Yeah, it's like weird.
The orb is like far purer and brighter, but like the jars are similar.
Yeah, it's like, is this what's like keeping them there somehow? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
What do you get from this? It's like, let me keep these. It's like, no, that's fine. Just leave the.
And she also tries to serve Ruin.
Yeah. It's like, I could serve you. No, get the fuck away.
Yeah,
get out of here.
I could serve you, vessel.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and she calls out for two people, Elreo and Rhaina.
2 eyes.
Yes.
Right.
And they're full, you pronounce both of them.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep, and so then he has the power stealing orb.
Yep, yeah, that was the most fun he'd had in ages.
I'd imagine it was truly very fun to listen to.
Yeah, so it's a fun section, that little heist.
Yeah, I think I listened to this whole thing in like a day.
Yeah.
I was like listening to it at work, and then like when I got home I continued to listen and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, and so that's the end of part 5.
Yeah.
Part 6. What's part 6 called? Hero. And it's the final part.
Yeah. So he's running back, and he's realizing how fucked everything is now. Like, it's way worse.
Oh, yeah, because he was gone for, like, months, essentially. Yeah. And so, like, that stuff all sort of
took... at least weeks.
Yeah, like, this is all taking place sort of, like, during the time... Because it's, like, in the time...
months. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, between, like, book 2 and book 3, he was kind of, like, fucked off... doing this shit, and then he comes back and it's like, everything's terrible.
Yup.
What the fuck? Everything's gotten way worse.
And he sees here he found the wreckage of a coastal city, smashed buildings, shattered streets. The entire city seemed to have slid into the ocean, and that's like the wave that we see. Vin. Nope, it's not.
No,
because it hasn't happened.
That hasn't happened yet.
I was thinking that. You're right.
I was about to say that I had that exact same thought.
Yeah, no, but it's not.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, is this... Because I was like trying to place when this happened, but like that only happens once she gets the power, and she has not gotten the power yet. So it's like, this is just like just general... Like, this is like the bit of like ruin... that, like, we didn't get to see.
Right.
Like, him ruining things with, like, earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff, but
in,
also...
like, different areas and stuff.
But, like, towards the ocean, he must have been, like, also, like, battering them with, like, waves and, like, you know, these earthquakes and stuff are probably causing bad shit to happen to them, especially there on the coast.
Tsunamis and shit,
tsunamis and, like, bits falling into the ocean and whatnot. So, I had that exact same thought. I was like, this is from the tsunami, but then it's like, nope, that has not happened yet. But yeah, he starts, like, making his way.
Preservation says come to Fadrix. And so he's trying to figure out, like, what to do, how to help, and stuff in Fadrix. And then he sees Hoyd and tells Vin...
It's like, no, don't...
It's like, no!
It's like, wait, this guy's dangerous. Don't talk to him. and then Vin's like, all right.
Yeah, because he goes, what are you doing here? Wait. Yeah, he touched his soul, or whatever. Kelsier felt a sudden shock, a painful spike that ran up his fingers into his soul. You, Drifter, what are you doing here?
But of course, Hoy doesn't respond at all.
And his fingers went numb after, like, touching him.
Yeah. And then, like, Vin shows up to, like, come see him. And he's like, no, get out of here. Don't...
Vin, stay away from that man.
And then Vin's just like, okay. Which is so funny because I've been talking about the whole, like, that was such an odd, like, little moment. And then it's like, it was Kelsier.
The amount that I was sitting here dying, I was like, it's Kelsier. It's literally fucking Kelsier. It's literally... And I'm like, I can't say anything. I can't show anything. I can't even show that I'm like, oh yeah, you're totally right. That was a weird, like...
Yeah, because I was like, is that, like, Ruin's influence? Is that, like, what is this? And then it's just like, we get an answer. There is an answer. Because she's just like, nope, vibes are off. And then just leaves. And then it's like, it was Kelsier the whole time. And that's great.
Yep.
It's very funny.
Yeah, and then they get to do, like, a little chase for a little bit. A very short little, like... Mistborn chase through the city for a bit until
because he's like not Mistborn,
right? But he like preservation helps him.
Like sort of like go after her a little bit, but then Ruin shows up and like stops him.
Because that was what Vin felt. Vin felt Kelsier following her for a while, and then it switched to Ruin's like one of Ruin's puppet things starts following her in this like section.
Gotcha.
And then so it switches like halfway through the chase.
Interesting. Yeah. It's wild.
Yep. So he talks to Ruin a bit, saying like, it's like, where have you been? I thought I'd see the sights to find out what death has to offer. Asking if he visited the Eyrie. And saying that like...
Yeah, because he's like trying to keep hidden that he has this like sphere, because it seems like Ruin doesn't realize.
No.
Because it's like they were out in the like ocean continent because it's like far enough away for him to like see and stuff.
Yeah, and then he tries to punch Ruin. And Ruin like dematerializes first. He's like, was that wise?
Yep. It's like, no, but it was very on theme. And it's like da da da.
Yeah, and so then he gets like he gets fucked up by Ruin here.
Yeah.
Like Ruin just like I don't know what he does, but he like
does something to him.
Yeah. Smiled at him. Ruin smiled at him in a pitying way. Then 1,000 spindly, needle-like black spikes shot from the creature's body, ripping through the robes that made up its clothing. They pierced Kelsier like spears, fraying his soul, bringing a blinding wave of pain.
Yeah.
And so then he's like recovering from that for a little bit.
Right. Is that when he's like, I can't be destroyed yet, or whatever? And he's like, I can choose when to pass on or not, or is that later?
It might be later.
Gotcha.
Well, maybe it was right here. Because Ruin says nothing can be destroyed, Kelsier. So maybe...
Nothing ever ends, Adrian. Yeah, because Ruin's like, nothing can be destroyed. Like, Ruin and Preservation are more alike than they think, because, like, Ruin can't actually destroy things, just change them. It's not actually ruin, it's change.
I can't find that exact...
It's okay.
It's literally in this. I'm dumb.
No, not
nothing
dumb.
can be destroyed, Kelsier. That's something humans can't understand. All things merely change, break down, become something new, something perfect. Preservation and I were two sides of the same coin, really. For when I'm done, he shall finally have his desired stillness, unchangingness. There won't be anything, body or soul, to disturb it.
Yep, the heat death of the universe, everything so spread out, far apart, everything becomes uniform again. Yep.
Yep. And then, you deserved that. Preservation said.
Yep.
Sure did. It was worth trying anyway.
Yep. It's that Kelsier's willing to get his ass kicked.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's important.
Yep. So then he for a while tries to get in contact with Vin and can't because Ruin keeps like blocking him and
yes.
stuff.
So he's like trying to do it like indirectly, and he like talks to this madman who ends up causing the fight that gets Demu and the others sent away.
Yep.
Which is important.
Yep, it is actually what gets them to realize that they have a whole bunch of Allomancers, and then Atium.
Later when that happens, because it's like they had already been like sent out and stuff.
Yeah.
And and so it's like it all ended up like all these little like domino pieces, you know, everything happens to sort of like work out, and it's not necessarily because there's a plan, but Kelsier is like trying.
Yep.
And Ruin's like, see, you just are serving me, causing these like fights and stuff, but it's like,
but it actually does end
up like helping in a way.
Yeah. And so then he realizes that there's nothing he can really do with Vin right at the moment. He needs to try and contact Marsh or Spook.
Yes, because they should be like sort of like more open.
Yeah.
And like influenceable, but also like farther away, so that like Ruin's not like right there blocking him. Like go somewhere like not right where they are, just sort of like get stuff to them more indirectly. Right, because that's where he's mainly
focusing.
Sort of be more indirect and go through someone else.
Yep. And then God dies. Preservation dies. Kelsier was nowhere in particular when God finally died. And so then he's talking, like...
There was a part earlier that we didn't talk about that I want to bring up, because there's like a part where he... Is it whenever he has like the infinite moment with Preservation, where he, like, Preservation feels everyone's like deaths and stuff? Because like Preservation can kind of like feel everyone.
It might be when he like ascends for a bit.
Gotcha.
Like when he holds the... Because he holds the power like waiting for Vin for a bit.
Yeah, but it's like because he like talks to Preservation for a bit, and like he like pities him.
Yes, that is part, yeah.
That is during the Ascension bit. Gotcha.
No, sorry, no, that's not during the Ascension bit. That's before.
Yeah, where it's like, is that how you feel? You pity me?
Yeah,
like that's what I've become, something to be pitied.
Yeah,
because he's like, I love this like image, this idea of like Preservation. It's like he feels all their deaths. He feels all their like pain and suffering. He wants them to be preserved. He wants to like, you know, and Kelsier can like sort of like understand him a little bit.
Yeah.
And Preservation is, you know, because like I was talking to you about like the whole, you know, argument from evil. If God is all good, all powerful, and all knowing, then like why does he allow evil to persist? And it's like, the most sympathetic version of God is that God is all good and all-knowing, but not all-powerful. Right. And so it's like, God knows and is trying, but there's only so much that God can do.
Right.
Is sort of the most sympathetic angle that I find for that. You know, if it has to be one of them.
Yeah.
And so Preservation is sort of like... very sympathetic in that way. He knows.
Yep.
And he's like... And he is good on some level, but, like, he's also too much of, like, his power of being Preservation that, like, he can't be all good or even all powerful.
Right.
And, you know... He's not all good, but in a very sort of, like, human way, but also in a weirdly, like, inhuman way.
They're interesting. They're both human and very alien at the same time.
Yep. Which again, madness. The mixture of like the human and the alien. The sort of like, you know, what does it mean to be human fully and all that sort of stuff.
It's some of the most interesting. I love the shards. They're so fascinating.
Yep. And I think I'm gonna enjoy that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. But yeah, as he like dies and stuff, he like Kelsier's like calling out like Fuzz, like Preservation, like I'm so sorry and all of that, like I'm here for you. No, you weren't, Kelsier. He's splitting my power. He's breaking it apart. It'll be gone, splintered. He will destroy it. And then Kelsier's like, well, I can like what, like hell he will. I'll take it or whatever. And Preservation's like, it's not yours. It belongs to another. And Kelsier's like, I'll get it to her.
Yeah.
Kelsier, do better than you have before. They called you their god, and you were casual with their faith. Their hearts of men are not your toys.
Yeah. Yeah, although it's like, but the thing is that it worked. But also it's like you gotta sort of take some responsibility in a sense, you know?
And then if the end comes, get them below ground. It might help. And remember what I told you long ago. Do what I cannot, Kelsier. Survive. Mm-hmm. And he knew that feeling. He remembered that exact command. Mm-hmm. He'd heard that voice in the pits, waking him, driving him forward, saving him.
Yeah, so it was preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, preservation dies.
Yep.
And so he uses the sphere.
Yeah, right? And then pulls in the power and ascends.
And he ascends, but there's not much that he can really do because he's not the right one.
No, he doesn't like gel with the power really.
With the power in the same way that like Vin does.
Yep. And so like he can't really hardly do anything. He
just
doesn't really respond to him.
Yeah, he can't really hardly do anything with it. That was my alarm again. Yeah. Obligatory One Piece reference? I don't know. Yeah, so he's essentially just kind of holding on to the power for Vin at this point, but he has become ascended. Yeah. And so he's like he
can see everything and like hear everything, but he can't talk to people anymore. Nope. Like he was able to do.
But he can hear their thoughts. Yeah. Which is the opposite of Ruin. Ruin couldn't hear thoughts. But could speak. Yeah. And so that's like we get to see a little bit of that, which is interesting. Yep. But he can't hardly like do anything with the power.
Yep. Yeah. He kind of just realizes that like they are everywhere, but their attention could only be divided. Mm-hmm. So much and kind of is realizing like
the limitations of it and whatnot.
Yeah, and then he realizes that that Ruin was bringing in Marsh to help with Badrix, and so that's where he kind of starts with. Mm-hmm. And
then he's like, I can't talk to Marsh anymore because Marsh is like a Ruin thing.
Yeah. So then he talks to Spook because he's not able to talk to most people, but he is able to
sort of talk to Spook because Spook's a little bit crazy.
Briefly, yeah, like very very small amounts, and sees like they're kind of his whole thing in Urto, like that final confrontation was kind of like whispering hope back and forth.
Yep. Yeah.
And then like Spook removing his spike and all of that.
Yeah, because there's like the moments where Spook kind of hears Kelsier in the book. Yep. It's like, I named you Spook.
Yep. Yeah, that's something that he, like, says.
It's like, I named you Spook. You were my friend. Isn't that enough?
Yep.
Yep, and he gets him to go in and do it. And then Spook's, like, dying kind of, and so Kelsier's, like, able to, like, talk to him.
Yep. Yeah, it's like... Kelsier sat on a strange verdant field, green grass everywhere. So odd, so beautiful. Spook walked over... what is this? Half dream? Plucking on a piece of grass and chewing on it. Yeah. Half dream? You're almost dead, kid. Smashed your spirit up pretty good. Lots of cracks that'll let me in.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, and I love that he's, like, chewing on the grass.
Yeah, chewing on the grass.
And it's like, why? It's like, oh, it's just...
Doesn't matter. None of this matters. You're not real.
Right.
Well, that's partially right. I'm not completely real. Haven't been since I died. But then I'm also a god now, I think. It's complicated.
Yep.
Yeah, and then tells him in his dream to send the message, like, to Vin.
Yep, and we get to sort of, like, the very end of it as he's, like, waking up in the like, original trilogy, but we get to see, like, more of it here.
Yeah, we get, remember, it's Spook, don't trust anyone pierced by metal, even the smallest bit contained a man.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so then,
because I had thoughts, and so much of him being like, it's like, since I died, I'm kind of a god now?
Yeah.
Which doesn't give, like, the full sort of, like, story to Spook, but also it's like, I had been, like, wondering, like, is Kelsier kind of like a god now? Is, like, because people believe in him and there is, like, an afterlife, does that have some sort of effect on it? But now, behind the scenes, we get to see, like, no, like, he had to, like, go and, like, do a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Like, Kelsier had to go and, like, work and do a bunch of stuff to, like, get to this point to where he can, like, stick around and then, like, going, like Kelsier does so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
Yeah, he's doing so much during the entire trilogy behind the scenes.
And it's very interesting. It's like, it's not just like people believed in him and that gave him some sort of, like, power or something. It's like he had to, like, do a bunch of, like, weird side quests to go to get to that point.
Yep. Holly just came in here making noise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so then Gordell, the messenger, like, comes up and, like, has the message. And so we see it from Kelsier's point of view.
As it goes. And the message gets to Marsh. And he's like, I know what's going on.
Yep. And I like, did you ever play Card Tricks, Ruin, back when you were a common man? I was never a common man, Ruin said. I was but a vessel awaiting my power.
Yep. And like, I think before Fuzz died, he had a comment, a line about, like, that's the thing about clever men, they never know as much as they think or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, like, Kelsier's kind of, like, playing on that as well.
Yep. And so then he's, like, he sees Marsh kill Gordell. Kelsier winced as his brother didn't just murder, but reveled in the death. Yeah. Driven to madness by Ruin's taint.
Yep, and then he sees, like, Ruin, like, sort of, like, putting an effort to, like, pull him back. And he's like, interesting. He doesn't have, like, complete control over him whenever he's in that state or whatever.
Yep. And then Kelsier kind of pretended that he was, like, upset that, like...
that it happened. He was like, no, this isn't good.
And, he, like, says sorry to Gordell and everything.
Yeah, he's playing the role.
Yeah, and it twisted Kelsier inside, but he didn't dare contradict the man. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
then we see her fight. Well, Kelsier sees her fight with the Inquisitors, and he's basically like, she's awesome. Like,
she's really fucking going to town.
Yeah.
It's like she's grown so much.
Yeah. She's,
like, become such a like, different person.
And then sees Marsh pull the... I like this little line here. Marsh ripped free Vin's earring. The world froze. Ruin, vast and immortal, looked on with complete and utter horror. You made the wrong one of us into your Inquisitor, Ruin. You shouldn't have picked the good brother. You always did have a nasty habit of doing what was right instead of what was smart.
Yep.
And gods it appeared could still fall for a classic misdirection con.
Yep. And he's like, you wanna know why I'm so good at card tricks? And it's like, is this really important? Like, I could always, force them to pick the card that I wanted.
Yeah. And then there's this little bit. I think we see this in Vin's perspective in the actual like in the original trilogy. The power came from the Well of Ascension, of course. It's the same power, after all. Yeah. Solid in the metal you fed to Elend, liquid in the pool you burned, and vapor in the air confined to night, hiding you, protecting you, giving you power. Yep.
I think that, like, we get her sort of, like, saying that, but I don't know if we, like, get her, like, hearing that.
I think it's, like, in italics in her head.
Gotcha.
But I think we think it's preservation, which it is. But well, no, we know preservation's dead by that point.
It's like we think it's just kind of like her sort of figuring it out, but it's like it's Kelsey sort of like talking to her as well.
Yep. And so then he gives you
the power to Vin.
Yep. Yep, and then he gets, like, kind of torn apart and re-deadish, kind of.
Right, and then he's like, wait, I can, like, because I had it, I can, like, choose whether to die or not.
And so he could have chosen
to pass on, but he chose to stay.
Yep. Yep. He sank his hands into the misty expanse around him and held on. Clinging to it, refusing to go, denying the force that called to him, promising peace and an ending.
Yep.
Yeah. He had held the power of a deity. The final death could not take him unless he wanted it to. Or unless he was completely destroyed.
Yeah. It's, can be killed, but cannot die of natural causes, as it were.
Yeah. And then, we see kind of his perspective on, like, the battle with the Koloss and Elend looking into the spiritual realm, and, like...
Which, that whole thing means that, like, the Lord Ruler could have stayed as long as he wanted.
Yeah.
He couldn't, like, he didn't have to, like, do any, like, extra shit to, like, stick around. He could have just stuck around.
Yeah. I think he had enough...
Yeah, it's like, because he held the power. He, ascended for a brief moment, so it's like...
Yeah, he definitely...
But he was an asshole. So he didn't. So he watches the Koloss fight.
Yeah.
And, like, Ellen using all the ATM.
Yep. He's seeing it fully, that place between moments.
Mm-hmm. Yep, as he's, like, burning, or he's flaring the ATM, and so he gets to, like, essentially, like, see the future. Like, all the, like, divine spiritual realm or whatever. The infinite possibilities.
Yep. And, so then, like, sees Ellen, like, die, and then is like, he's like, oh, Vin, I'm sorry. Vin's full attention coursed around the fallen man. Kelsier pulled to a stop, numb. She would rage. She would lose control. She would rise in glory.
Yep.
And, there was no hatred in the thrumming that washed from her, calming all things. Above her, Ruin laughed, again assuming he knew so much. That laughter cut off as Vin rose against him, glorious, radiant spear of power. Controlled, loving, compassionate, but unyielding.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsier knew then why she, not he, needed to do this.
Yep.
She brought destruction to the destroyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the part in here where, like, Kelsier... Has this already happened, the whole him and Preservation, my lord moment? Was that when he died?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had wanted to talk about that. And, like, this is a little bit out of order now, so sorry this is... But, like, that's the one thing that I really didn't like.
Yeah.
Was Kelsier calling Preservation my lord there at the end. And, like, partially it's like, you know, that's what Preservation was like, maybe you could call me that. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like a callback to that, and it's like he's being nice to him in that way, but it's just like, I don't know. I don't like Kelsier being like, my lord, when part of his whole thing is the being against the, like, you know... It's like, oh, in the end he comes to, like, kind of accept God, and I'm like... Yeah, but, like, he was right to be mad at Preservation, and also, he doesn't like the nobility and the aristocracy, and he doesn't want to, like, have lords over him and stuff, so it just feels, I don't know, it's like, I don't think it's, like, you know, like, I'm not like, oh, it's so, I'm so happy now that Kelsier's calling someone my lord and, like, being reverent to them in this way when that's not, you know, the things that I find admirable about Kelsier are, like, the ways in which he, like, goes against that stuff. Yeah. And so it's just kind of, like, it just kind of bugged me, kind of irked me a little bit. Yeah. It was the one bit that felt a little, like... In religion, good. Yeah. You know? It's like, isn't it good that he said my lord to God because we like God? Yeah. And I'm just like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like, you know, I like Preservation in the human aspects of him, but, like, he's not good, capital G. Yeah. You know, he's a good guy. He's trying to do good, but also he has his problems. Yeah. And, you know, he's not a god that I'm calling my lord being, you know. So that was just like a little thing. And I'm just like, you know, I'd prefer him to just still be Fuzz, a member of the crew, and, you know, or even just like if he got his, like, name and called him, like, his name or something, you know. I think I would have preferred that. But, you know, it's just a little thing. Yeah. But anyway, back to what we were, the part that we were actually, like, at.
Ellen pops up.
Yep, Ellen dies, and so he pops in, and Kelsier's like, sup?
You need to pay better attention, kid. Nice uniform. Did you ask them to make you look like a cheap knockoff of the Lord Ruler, or was it more an accident? Wow, what? I hate you already. Yep.
It's like, oh, you'll get used to it. You know.
Give it time. For most, that eventually fades to a sense of mild exasperation.
Yep. Oh, Kelsier.
Yep. And so then he sees
Vin sort of like destroy, like have Ruin and Preservation both kind of like cancel each other out. And so then Vin just kind of like pops into existence as well in the cognitive realm.
Yep. Because so first he sees like the power coming from like her body and
AT's body.
Yeah. And is like, nobody's holding them. Kelsier reached out, timid, trembling. He could, and then Ellen popped up, and then Vin. Yeah. And they're talking a bit about, like, Sazed and, like, how he's changed the past year and everything.
Yeah. And, yeah, because, like, Ruin's been doing a number on Sazed, essentially, is what they were saying. It's like, he was so... Because he was very Preservation. He's trying to preserve all this sort of stuff. But then, like, Ruin's influence, not necessarily, like, direct, like, magical influence, but just, like... Ruin's really put him through the ringer with all the shit that he's caused. Yeah. And so, like, him sort of needing to, like, accept some of the change and things like that. Like, he needs to come to the point where he's kind of, like, balanced between Ruin and Preservation.
Yep, and then we see A.T. Mm-hmm. Just A.T.
Just A.T.
The man who held the power. And he looked about. Vax, he said, sounding confused. And then, then Kelsier actually punches him.
Right. Vax, he said?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think I had assumed that was maybe Preservation's name.
Got you. Yeah.
It's also funny, because that's like, I think about like Vex and Vax.
Yeah.
From Campaign 1 of Critical Role.
Yep. And so then Kelsier, like, they like hug and it's a good like conversation.
Yeah, they have like a little reunion, which is very sweet. Yep. And then like
he asks them to stay.
Yeah, but Ellen's like already sort of like going towards the beyond, and Vince like, no, I got to go with him.
Yep.
And it's like, you have a lot to learn about love.
Yep.
Kelsia's like, no, I know about love. It's like, I loved Mare and stuff. It's like, did you do all this because you loved Mare or because you wanted to be right?
Yeah.
And you wanted to, like, get revenge and be proven right about not being betrayed? Or did you actually, like, did you do it out of love or did you do it for yourself?
Yeah, and he goes, I don't know.
Like, I don't know. And that's what he's kind of got to learn.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be sort of like his arc going forward.
Yeah, but yeah.
Which it's wild that Kelsier is going to have an arc going forward as a ghost.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and then they went into the beyond.
Yep.
And so we get him talking to Kelsier, to Sazed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, after the land shook and groaned as it died and was reborn. He strolled through the end of the world, power spraying in all directions, giving him visions of all three realms. Fires burned from the heavens, stone crashed together, then ripped back apart. Oceans boiled and their steam became new mist in the air. He didn't feel abandoned, but he did feel alone, like he was the only man left in all the world, and the last witness of eras.
Mm-hmm. I mean, end of era 1.
Yep, yeah. And I just like this whole kind of description of it. I won't read all of it because there's a lot, but...
right, yeah.
It's,
Sazed reshapes the world, recreates it.
Yeah, and he asks,
if he can sort of be, like, brought back, right?
Yeah, well, so first he asks about Spook, and it's like, do me a favor, like, do what you can for Spook.
Make him a Mistborn.
Yeah, and then he goes, what do you think, Sazed? Is there a way for me to get out of this and live again in the physical realm? Sazed hesitated. No, I do not think so. He patted Kelsier on the shoulder, then vanished. Huh. He holds the powers of creation in twain, a god amongst gods. And he is a terrible liar.
Yeah.
Or he's still a terrible liar.
Right. Yeah, because he's now 2 shards in 1.
Yes.
Which is, like, crazy.
Yes.
Because it seems like all the other shards are just, like, singular.
Yep. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's a wild time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the epilogue.
Yep, which is Spook.
Yep.
Spook is living in a mansion, quote.
Yep.
It's like, because they're like...
A bigger house.
A bigger house. Because it's like, they just sort of like appear on this world that seems to just be the world with like nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's just like all this like nature and stuff, so they have to kind of rebuild. From scratch.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yep.
And then he gets a spike and
like in his dream he's like he gets a message to like get a spike forged, an earring, an old Inquisitor spike will work.
Yeah, take an old Inquisitor spike and turn it into an earring so that he can put which he doesn't, he just jams through his ear.
Yep.
And then boom, Kelsier.
Gah, you're dead. Vin killed you. Sazed's book said, it's okay, kid. I'm the real one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, what?
Yeah, because
he thought it was Ruin first.
Yeah, because Ruin was pretending to be Kelsier too. It's like, no, I'm the real one. It's like, well, how am I supposed to know that?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, kid, I got plans. We gotta like work together and do some shit. And I am worried about that. I'm like, I don't know that this is gonna be the best thing for you to do right now, Kelsier.
It's a big place out there, kid. Bigger than I ever knew. Ignorance almost lost us everything. I'm not gonna let that happen again. While dead, I had an opportunity. My mind expanded and I learned some things. My focus wasn't on these spikes. I think I could have worked it all out if it had been. I still learned enough to be dangerous, and the two of us are gonna figure the rest out.
Yeah, and I'm like, a little worried about that, but also it's like, yeah, it's like there's a lot of knowledge out there, and because we didn't know it, we weren't able to, like, handle stuff, so it's like, yeah, it makes sense that you want to, like...
They didn't know anything about the wider anything.
About the wider Cosmere, so it's like, Kelsier might be, like, connecting them, but also it's like, is Kelsier going to be doing crazy cognitive realm heist shit still? Because that could maybe be bad for relations with other planets.
Yep, and his kind of newest goal is to find a way to live back in the physical realm.
Yes, and I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't possess Spook, please. Or, like, make a new Inquisitor for the purpose of becoming it or something. I don't know. I don't know how you're going to end up doing this, but I'm worried.
Yeah.
I'm worried about how you're going to achieve this goal.
Yep. Yeah, they're looking into hemalurgy, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And so. I'm like, I mean, you have all these, like, hemalurgy spikes that existed from before to, like, do stuff with, but, like, but making new ones requires killing someone, and that's...
It's not, yeah.
But see, I'm like, because I'm just, like, thinking about weird other applications. I'm like, does it work on animals? Could you kill an animal with the spike and then get, like... Because it's like, if you just kill, like, a normal human with it, without allomancy, you can take some of their, like, strength or whatever.
Yeah.
I think they said. So I'm like, could you, like, kill animals with hemalurgy and get something from them?
Probably depends on how much investiture they have.
Yeah. And I'm like, how much investiture do animals have?
Right.
I don't know. Because, like, the humans were made with, like, ruin and preservation, but so were these animals, but they have, like, equal parts ruin and preservation, maybe, like a rock does.
Right.
But, like, the humans have like, more...
Right.
So it's like, does that affect things? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There's still plenty of... it sets up plenty of questions.
It certainly does. And then there's also, like, a postscript by Sanderson. So talking about
writing it.
Talking about writing it and how it's, like... It's a little disjointed because it's like we're skipping around a bunch of like time and stuff, but he, say maybe we'll get secret history too, but don't necessarily count on it.
Yeah, he was basically like he wasn't sure if he wanted to write it because it would be so like he thought it would be disjointed and stuff, but he like wanted to and stuff.
I'm certainly glad to have it.
Oh,
I really enjoyed this. Yeah. There was a lot of very interesting stuff in there. A lot of big theory brain stuff.
Oh yeah.
And also just like. I like getting to know what was happening behind the scenes. It's great. I'm so happy to have answers. Like, I'm like, yes, answers, thank you.
I'm so happy we read this now and stuff. And you had so many questions that were specifically...
answered by this.
And I was just like, I can't just let this...
sit for
forever and, like... You were too on it, and just it's good to have.
Yes, I appreciate that. So that's the end.
Yeah.
That's the end of Secret History. Yeah. So that's I've really enjoyed this first dip into the Cosmere, and I look forward to more as we switch to something else for a little bit. But I will be excited to come back to it, just in any of the places.
We'll probably, when we come back to Cosmere, we'll probably go to Elantris, and then do the Elantris short story. There's like 2 Elantris short stories or whatever, one novella and one one that takes place like actually with like Elantris, and then one on the same planet, different place.
Gotcha.
In the planet. One of my favorite short stories I've ever read is Emperor's Soul. So, but we'll go to like Elantris and that as our next when we come back to the Cosmere.
Yeah. Do we want to do our little what we've been reading thing?
I've mostly been rereading.
Yeah, I've mostly been like I haven't been on the Wheel of Time train. I've like gotten a little bit started on like Heart of Winter or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Winter's Heart or whatever it is. But I have not been... like, anytime I'm like, I need to listen to something at work, I've just been like listening to like Magnus Archives or some other random stuff instead of listening to that. Yeah. Although it is, go
ahead.
It's Fael and the land of... big titty mean ladies.
Oh, yeah.
which is funny to me.
Yeah. I love Savannah. Savannah's one of my favorite Wheel of Time characters.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Like, there's so many good characters.
Yeah.
I love Savannah. She's the worst.
Yeah, you do love characters who are the worst. You love a good, hateable character in that sense.
Both Elida and Savannah in Wheel of Time. I love them.
Yeah, you love someone who's, like, overconfident.
Overconfident and just wrong.
Yep, just, like, wrong and dumb.
And, like, also annoying.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's great.
It's, yeah. But then I've also been listening to a podcast. I was trying to find my phone so I could, like...
Yeah.
What podcast it was.
There's your phone.
Yeah. I think it's Highly Invested.
Is that a Cosmere thing? Because, like, investiture?
Yeah. It's highly invested capital. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if it wasn't, it's like, because it's the title of a podcast, it'd still be capitalized.
Yeah, it's highly invested. I've been listening to them go through Way of Kings, which has been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been a good time.
Yeah.
I want us to listen to more Magnus Archives.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you need to get re-caught up.
I've been enjoying going back through it though quite a bit.
Yeah. It's been fun. We do need to, like, listen to more, though we haven't been doing that lately and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of times we do when that one channel puts out a Magnus video.
Yes.
Like, watch it.
Yes. Like Endicott or whatever.
Yeah,
who left a little comment on one of our videos one time, which was very sweet.
Yeah.
Their most recent video was probably my favorite.
So good.
It was very good.
I loved it.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they've doing less of the sort of, like,
the audio
distortion stuff makes it easier to sort of, like, listen to.
Yeah.
Because it's like we'll have to, like, because, like, we're watching on, like, a TV and stuff, and so it's like turning up the volume and trying to, like, get what they're saying.
They're putting, like, subtitles or whatever.
Yeah. And so, like, it's like I get what you're going for, the vibe, but, like, I appreciate that it's, like, a little bit cleaner now.
Yeah.
And it's so fun because they're getting into, like, into the stuff.
Yeah, fully into...
And I love seeing someone,
the entities and
the entities and stuff, yes. Although that is,
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm loving it. I've been enjoying getting back into Magnus because it's like, with stuff like this, it's like, suddenly I just see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I just see random things and I'm like, that's like Magnus.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm like, which entity is this?
Yeah.
We're just like random shit.
Have we ever said what Magnus Archive is? Or we just talked about it?
Magnus Archives is a podcast by Rusty Quill. Written by Jonathan Sims. And produced by Alexander J. Newell, who is also Martin Blackwood.
I love it.
Yeah, Alexander J. Newell, the producer for Rusty Quill, or for Magnus Archives, is also the guy who voices Martin in Magnus Archives, which is
it's like a horror podcast type of thing.
Yes, it's like a horror anthology podcast, but it does have an overarching narrative, but every episode has its own little contained, like, horror story, because those are the statements. And the creators have said that because it's so interesting, the things that they've established sort of, like, out of canon, where they're like, every episode will have a statement. The statements are for sure true in universe, although we are not doing the thing where we're pretending like this is real life. It's not doing the thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely for sure like real life
podcast.
A real, you know. It's like, no, this is a fictional podcast, but all the statements that you hear in the podcast are true in the story. You never have to be like, oh, is this real or not? It is real. And that becomes, like, clear as it goes on, but it's just something that, like, they were in, like, Q&As and stuff. Because, like, I want you to listen so that you can listen to, like, the Q&As as well, because we didn't do that before. And I love their little Q&As. They're very fun. And I just love hearing Jonathan Sims answer questions like, which animals are people? dolphins are people. I think also he said pigs are people, and he's like, unfortunately, like, I can see why people say this, but dogs are not people. I'm sorry. And it's just very funny.
That's great.
Yeah, and he's like, they have to have the capacity for evil. They have to be smart enough to have the capacity for evil. It's like, some dolphins are good, some dolphins are bad.
Yeah.
Some dolphins save people who are drowning, some dolphins do horrible things to people.
Yep.
Like, you know, a lion, it just kills something because it needs to eat. Like, a dolphin, they didn't need to be an asshole, but it was. And I just think that that's really funny. His idea of which animals count as people. But yeah, this has been Let's Talk About Book.
Yeah.
And now you can go forth and think about book on your own time. It's been so much fun doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you know, getting through our first little series. It's just, it's so nice. It's so fun. And I'm looking forward to
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going through and highlighting the other day, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and Cradle, both of them.
And Cradle.
Yeah.
Yep, that'll be fun as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think we'll do 2. I was saying do 3 books and then switch, but 2 and then switch.
Gotcha.
Because there's a way that people like break up these the Cradle series.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mother's Basement. So Mother's Basement video recently where he was mentioning Cradle as well as Cosmere as well as other stuff, and it was very funny because
so
he
if
was
you're a
like,
Cosmere fan and have not read Cradle, legitimately, like I'm like recommending it, like so hard, like you will like it.
and Jeff Thu was like, Cradle's actually funny, and I'm like, I think that, you know, Brandon Sanderson stuff is actually funny when he's trying to be funny.
His humor hits for me. Like, for some people, it like turns people off, and his humor does not hit. Like, his humor hits for me. I find it funny. Like, you know,
like it certainly works for me.
Yeah,
you know,
it can be a little silly, goofy, but I like silly, goofy humor. You know, I think some people who like are not a fan of his humor, mainly they don't like the goofy.
Yeah.
The silly, and I enjoy that.
Which is just odd to me. But,
but
anyway, I already did the little outro thing, but, you know. Yeah, think about book on your own time.
Do that again.
Do that again, you know.
Think about book twice on your own time.
Yes. Like, think about it again. You didn't think about it enough last time, because we started talking about this stuff. But yes, have a lovely whatever time it is.
Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.